All right. Is everybody ready? Okay. Welcome this evening. We ready to go, Alyssa? Okay, I'm just going to assume that's a yes.
Already.
Thanks. It is Thursday, December 3rd, 2020. This is our first regularly scheduled City Council meeting in December. For those folks who are calling in as participants, when it comes time for public comment on a particular issue or comments for items not on the agenda, if you are calling in, it is *9 to raise your hand for me to recognize you. And if you are presenting, I can promote you up to panelist. So we have a couple presenters tonight. With that, Catherine, can you take roll?
Willman?
Here. Here.
Oh.
Here.
Hope?
Here.
Godus?
Here.
Davis?
Here.
Stepp?
Here.
Hershey?
Present.
All right, I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item number 7, agenda changes and conflicts. Is there anybody that has a conflict of interest on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, are there any changes?
I have a conflict of interest, Mr. Mayor, but I would like, Mr. Mayor, I would like to remove item 10E from the consent agenda.
Ordinance number 27.
That's the marijuana
Sure.
matter.
Okay, let's remove that. And do we want to take that as the first item of action tonight, or what's your suggestion?
Wherever you want, I just want to have
let's just deal with that first off. All right, we can do that. Is there any other agenda changes anybody else has? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 8. This is citizens appearing before council. These are for items not on the agenda. I see we have a number of participants here. I recognize some of them. So specifically, if I'm just looking at the crowd I have, if you want to speak about COVID-19 or anything related to that or regulation at all, that's the time to comment on that. And that's item number 15. So any other people from the public want to comment on items not appearing from the agenda, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, we will bring it back and I will bring back the council comments. Go ahead, Charlie.
Just briefly, I commented on this during a work session. The Transportation Commission met this week. Shelley, correct me if I'm wrong, we were both there. There were a couple of recommendations that came out of that the council should be aware of. And these will be coming, Terry Parks will be bringing these back to you with some staff recommendations as well. But the first was they felt that the Blake Gate should be opened immediately. And with that, the 26th to 27th Street on Blake should be southbound only. That's one issue. The other issue is they had some significant concerns about the MOVE study and the timing and sequencing of that, but I think some of that got answered in the meeting we had today. And then the third issue was there were some recommendations for change orders on the South Midland project that I, again, assume Terry will be addressing those. Terry Parks will be addressing those, but just be aware they were fairly active in their meeting today. They had their subcommittee meetings and we had a discussion about staff input into that and indicated that staff just can't be overly engaged in that. They just don't have the time, and they were very receptive to knowing that they need to just use, I think Sarah's going to help them set up the meetings and then she can be monitoring but not be in each of those meetings. So thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Ingrid.
Here. So as the council's newest member, I have been asked by a few different service organizations to just meet with them, get to know them, kind of a question and answer session. And what has come of it is that I realized so many of these service industries like Rotary and Lions Club and a few others have been around for so long, and they give they're such a benefit to our community. And yet, unfortunately, they're aging out. So their community members or their organization members are getting to an age where they're not able to do the same level of volunteering that they historically had, and they need new members. They asked me, and it's such an honor to be asked, but ultimately I'm going to just put a little request out there to the community and those watching that if you have time and energy and availability for dedicating a few hours a month to these organizations, they really do need you, and they would love to have new members. So Lions Club, let's see, I think it's 104 years old. Rotary, 115 years old. These are organizations that helped build our communities and our country, and they bring such value. And so if anybody is willing to get out there and help, I just really commend you all and really appreciate it. And that is also coming from a few of the different organizations.
Thanks, Ingrid. Appreciate that. Paula.
I just wanted to see if council or could direct staff or consider talking about at least the some kind of help to what the state lawmakers are working on. They just passed a bill for $20 million for school districts to broaden internet access. And because we have our own internet system here in town and are working to expand that, I thought maybe we could do some outreach to RE1 or schools in RE1 to see how we can help in this process of making sure kids have access to internet for schools. So just wanted to put that on the table for council to consider and maybe have a discussion about that in the near future, just because we have those services and maybe there's something we can do. And then I imagine that Jonathan's going to bring this up, and if he does, I just want to say I'm standing behind Glenwood Springs, seeing how they could do some kind of 5-star program, and I'll leave that in Jonathan's hands.
No, but no pressure, huh?
No pressure.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Paula. Deborah, did you want to interject?
Yeah, I just wanted to assure you guys that we have been working with the school system for years to actually broaden the ability for residents to gain access to internet. So I think that is an ongoing discussion that we've been having, and I think we are very happy to continue to do. It's not something we talk about a lot.
I appreciate that. I just want to make sure our kids are getting the access that they need.
Awesome. Shelley.
I just wanted to add on to Charlie's comments about the Transportation Commission. They voted on the recommendation for the Blake Gate. And then there was a lot of discussion about the MOVE study. And also there were some recommendations for South Midland. So I think as those are recommendations from the commission, I think those should possibly be brought to council for action. Some of the South Midland recommendations engineering might be able to incorporate without much of a cost addition, but I'm assuming if there's a cost impact to the project, that those will come to council. So I just wanted to verify that.
Yeah, yes, I believe we intend, the Transportation Commission is an advisory board to City Council. You guys will be making any decisions, not the advisory board.
So if we can bring that Blake Gate discussion possibly, and then I think we're talking about a work session on the MOVE study questions.
Yes.
Thanks.
Any other comments? I'll just put my 2 cents in. I think after 8 months, I finally figured out I would prefer Deborah and Carl. If you have something to say, just jump in and say it. Don't wait for me to recognize you. I think that actually works better. So, but it only took 8 months to figure that out. The other thing I want to say, and it's similar to Ingrid, but slightly different. We had a work session today on boards and commissions, and just, what our expectations are, what our thoughts are in terms of service. And I just want to say how much I believe I speak for the entire council, how much we value our boards and commissions. They help us so much. They are the subject experts on things that we can't be. There's times where people just ask us, what about this? What about that? And we're very rarely the expert on anything up here. That's why we have great staff. We have people who are super interested and very talented and educated on these boards and commissions. So I just want to thank them from the bottom of my heart for all the value they do provide to not us, but to us to help make decisions in benefit of the entire city. And if you've ever thought about getting on a board or commission, there is oftentimes an alternative position, or just show up and start to attend. If you are interested in something, don't wait till you see a vacancy sign up. Just go and show up and start to get to know what's going on, because we could use that help. We're always looking for more voices and varied interests to help represent all aspects of the city, especially diversity. So there's my plug. Any other comments? All right. I'll be looking for a motion sans item E, ordinance 97, which Charlie asked to reserve out. So if Charlie wants to give me a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that, absent that item.
Been moved by Charlie, seconded by Tony, absent item number E. All in favor signify by saying aye and raising a hand. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. All right, let's take item E, ordinance number 27. This is the municipal code related to regulations of marijuana businesses within the city of Mindsprings, Colorado. Charlie, you have the floor.
Thank you. As you know, at the last meeting when we passed this on first reading, I was starting out by indicating I thought that there ought to be a standard similar to getting a liquor license, which is that the reasonable needs of the neighborhood are not being met. I was talked out of that, and I've been thinking about it for the last couple of weeks, and I think we need that standard. I think we need some kind of standard, of some kind of limit on the number of marijuana, be they medical or retail, just regular retail stores, recreational, I guess is the other term. I think we need to have that, and as a result, I'm not going to vote for this ordinance on the second reading. If we have a consensus, council agrees with that idea, then I would suggest we table the second reading till next meeting, and have Mr. Hanlon come back with some changes that would add that provision to it. I do think we need some kind of a check on how many stores there are, not just leave it unlimited, and that reasonable needs gives us that checkability.
Would anybody like to respond to Charlie? No, you don't have to. Well, I'll just say I completely agree, Charlie. I think we should be treating marijuana like alcohol, so I won't be voting for this either. Ingrid, go ahead.
And I too am in agreement with Charlie. I think that seeing some continuity between the two, because they do have some similarities in their impact and the necessity in our community, I think it's great to have some type of similar application.
Good, Paul.
Charlie, are you saying there's a limit to the number of liquor stores that you can have in town?
No, there isn't, Paula, but if I want to open up a new liquor store on Grand Avenue, and it met all the other criteria, I have to prove, and it hasn't been an issue recently. Maybe I'll take that back, Carl. Has that been taken out of our code? See, we had this conversation come up, but it's not our code anymore. But I think it should be for both liquor and marijuana, I guess. So
it was temporarily.
Sorry, Carl, go ahead.
Yeah, it was temporarily suspended right now, the petition requirement, because of COVID.
Oh, okay. But normally it's in place.
I believe so.
Is that correct, Carl? Okay.
I think we always have.
So
it was a state level regulation change because of COVID.
So taking away the COVID aspect of it, what was the regulation prior? I'm just still trying to get clarity.
You needed to do a petition in the neighborhood to show that there was a need in the neighborhood. I will, pragmatically tell you that regardless of how many signatures are on one of those, I've never in Glenwood Springs seen a liquor store or liquor license denied based on the needs of the community. And
I agree, Carl, but I think that we need to have it because might be a contingent in this community that says enough's enough, and if so, they ought to have the right to also have counter petitions saying, we think the needs are being met, you know, and so
Yeah,
I think we should allow for that procedure. I'm sorry, James.
No, I would just say that that's maybe getting out of the scope of, we're starting to talk about alcohol now. And so, maybe I would suggest that we see if this motion passes or fails, given what oh, thanks, Steve. Steve Davis, I think you're sharing a screen with us. Am I the only one that sees that?
I see it too.
I can see it.
Don't bring up your browser history, Steve.
Why did he get it about an email? Deborah.
So we can get through this while Steve's working on his stopping his screen share, or maybe Alyssa can jump in if need be. But go ahead, Shelley.
I will just say I'm not against having further discussion on this. I'd like to understand it a little bit more and how much it would actually affect what we have, because I'm under the impression that with the geographical limitations that we have in town and the commercial zoning, along with the new 1,000-foot separation distances, that we have a pretty tight limit on any new shops that could go in at this point. But that's just my impression of it. So I'm not against further discussion if that's what council wants to have.
Well, I think as long as everybody understands what Charlie is asking, I guess let's just bring it for a vote and see where it goes. Catherine, let's do call the question.
Willman,
There's no motion.
Oh, I thought you did a motion, Charlie.
It's a second.
I was trying to find like my notes for anything that said there was a motion. He just raised it as a discussion.
You're trying to pull it so we can have it as a discussion. Catherine, you're supposed to stop me. You're supposed to pretend not to hear that stuff.
I'll make, just to further it along, I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance number 27, series 2020, amending the regulations for marijuana businesses.
And I'll
within the
second
city.
Shelley's motion.
Now, it's been moved by Shelley, seconded by Tony. This is an ordinance, right? So I don't have to open it public comment. We've done
Yeah,
public.
it's the second reading.
Thank you. All right. Now, Catherine, let's call the question.
Russo,
No.
Willman,
No.
Godus,
No.
Davis,
I'm going to abstain as a result of the fact that I fell out of the meeting, and by the time I came back on, I never heard the motions.
It was a straight up motion to approve as is, Steve.
Okay, I'll vote yes for that. Thank you.
Step,
Yes.
Hershey,
Yes.
Cope,
I'm going to say yes.
Motion passes.
motion passes.
Adida.
That was incredibly dramatic for a consent agenda item. All right. Now to our regular agenda, item number 11, Mindsprings School Programming Update. I am going to promote Hans. Is there anybody else that needs to be promoted?
Aaron Quinn, I believe Hans told me.
Okay, done.
And then I feel like a third person that I can't remember. Hans, can you tell us who the third person is?
Howdy. Yeah, it was Gabby Touche, actually, was the third person.
Gabby, I do not see a Gabby.
Gabrielle Touche.
Nope,
She's got her hand up.
she does.
Yeah.
Oh, there she is. Oh, she went to the top. Okay. Okay. Floor is yours, Hans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are here, and I preliminarily sent some information to Deborah, which I believe she shared with council, reporting off on the programming that we have been providing this year in some of the Glenwood Springs area schools under the Valley marijuana taxes. So this is the positions that are really geared at trying to integrate some behavioral health, mental health support into the schools, primarily focusing on social emotional skill building and early prevention kinds of activities. This is not individual therapy in the schools. This is really some other aspects of what we believe to be part of the total overall wellness of the schools that we can contribute due to our expertise in the fields of mental health, substance abuse, and behavioral health. So some of the numbers there certainly they weren't totaled up for everyone. And I know that there was a question about total amount of money spent for our positions this year. And I can answer that question. It was $75,000 for the multiple schools and multiple clinicians in the schools for the calendar year. And that will be spent in totality. We had just filled that out monthly because it is a year-long process for the clinicians to work with the schools, administrations, families, and students. The reporting that you guys have that preliminarily had showed some numbers of unduplicated contacts with either students, teachers, faculty, and families, and that was for the first half of this year. So we can really kind of look at probably doubling those numbers. So just to make it really, really quick and short math, we're looking at just short of 1,200 unduplicated contacts in our Glenwood Springs area schools that we were involved with this year. And that looks a little different now than it did for the first half of the year. We had a bit of an experiment thinking that we wanted to kind of expand our impact, our footprint in the Glenwood Springs schools. So we ended up having our clinicians at Two Rivers, St. Stephen's, Yampa, and the two elementary schools to start the year. What we found from that experiment was that more is not necessarily more. And what we really ended up doing is very thoughtfully paying attention to some of the feedback that we got from the faculty in the schools that we were in and trying to, I think, make a more qualitative impact on the work that we were doing and the funding that you have provided with this project. And we are in less schools now for a larger amount of time as an experiment with this project. So at the moment we are in Two Rivers and St. Stephen's and Yampa. We doubled basically the time that we were spending in Two Rivers though. And that has proven, I think, to be really beneficial. And then I'll certainly let Erin Quinn talk a little more about this, but that was kind of the feedback that she got, was that we were really just spreading our clinicians too thin, that it was compromising the ability for us to really integrate into those schools' cultures and really become a part of that team and be a trusted and familiar face so that could positively impact our work. So that's kind of my high level setting of the table. And I really wanted Erin and Gabby to be here to be available if there were specific questions that the council had for us about how that programming, how that help, how that support, how coaching, you know, all of the things we're doing, how that looked. So that's kind of my presentation on what we've been doing, but they can certainly provide a lot of context about some of the programs that we've been performing for the past 12 months, 11, sorry. So if it would be helpful, we can have them kind of do maybe a brief summary of some of the work that they've done in the schools. Is that like a good second piece of this presentation to the council?
Yeah, if they want to briefly go through, a few minutes, that'd be great. I think it gives us a good background.
Okay. Aaron, you want to
Sure.
take over?
Yeah, I can start.
Okay.
So hi, I'm Erin Quinn. So as Hans was saying, I was in 4 schools last year, serving as the kind of the social emotional therapist in the 4 schools. So I was in Two Rivers Community School, St. Stephen's Catholic School, Cypress Elementary School, and Glenwood Springs Elementary School. And I was doing that where I was in 4 schools throughout the week for about, well, until COVID struck. So for about 6 months, 5 months. And I got, like, as Hans was saying, I got some feedback that it felt like I wasn't in some of the elementary schools quite enough. So we shifted, and now I'm doing a full day in St. Stephen's and 2 full days in Two Rivers Community School. And I've gotten a lot of feedback that that's been really helpful for the school. I've gotten feedback that they really feel like I'm part of the community of the school, where parents feel like they can contact me, they know who I am, as well as teachers. And in terms of groups, I actually put together a little document. And in terms of what Hans was talking about with unduplicated services, my numbers expressed that I was seeing about 490 students during the 2018-2019 school period. I was doing a lot of DBTA groups, which stand for Adolescent Dialectical Behavior Therapy, which really is just a fancy way of saying young people learning skills. So that was a really cool group I got to do. I still do that pretty frequently. A lot of conflict resolution skills, a lot of interpersonal relationships. So like how to build friendships within school and outside of school, impulse control, emotion identification, like just lots of different groups. I got to work pretty closely with parents, so I was also doing parent groups. I've had the opportunity to teach youth mental health first aid to a few staff at some different schools. So I've really done a lot. I really love doing the school-based therapy, and yeah, so that's a little bit about mine, but I'm also happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions? All right, anybody have any comments?
And I apologize. I didn't even introduce myself. I'm the program director for Mindsprings Health here in Garfield County. I'm a bit of a rookie on these things, so be patient with me.
Yeah, Hans,
Gabby, you wanna? What's that?
Yeah, I was gonna say we're super wet behind the ears, Hans. You haven't been in the community at all, so. Sorry, go ahead, Gabby.
No worries.
Gabby, you want to share what you've been doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, my name's Gabby Touche. I've been at Yampa Mountain High School since October of 2018, actually. So I feel like I've really become part of that school. And similar to Aaron, my role was really hitting on those prevention, education, and safety groups. So it wasn't individual therapy. It was really connecting with the kids and providing those educational topics on substance use, mental health, anything that goes along with the wellness topics. And I also put together a document of my role at Yampa. I'm not sure if you guys got that, but like Aaron, I was doing the DBT skills training for adolescents, focusing on mindfulness, emotion regulation, distress tolerance, and interpersonal effectiveness. About 25 students participated in this program since COVID hit. And then we actually had to stop the group after that. Seeking Safety group is a pretty important group at Yampa because a lot of our students are involved with substance use, and that's part of the reason why they end up at the school. And so this group is really teaching them more so education about the risks and consequences of using substances. And really we operate from a harm reductions lens. So some of our students are still going to use drugs and alcohol, but we want to make sure that they're safe and they know the risks and consequences, and making sure they really have a trusted adult to go to when they experience these issues. And then the last group I did was the health class, and there wasn't really a structure to this group, but just bringing in topics on coping skills, mental health awareness, suicide prevention, self-care, and healthy communication. And I really think being in the school as a Mindsprings counselor focused on building connections with trusted adults. And by having a counselor in our schools, we're investing in the overall health of our students, and that really is going to strengthen the community as a whole. So that's what I've been doing the past couple of years.
Paula.
Wow, it sounds like a great program. Hans, is there an opportunity in the future to expand with more therapists to the other schools again, or is that kind of just wait to see what the funding is?
Yeah, Paula, I think that is definitely an opportunity. Part of my idea is that we really do need to figuring out new funding streams, more permanent funding streams, and ways to, increase our partnerships for sure across the county, across all the districts that the 3 school districts that we have. So those are creative kind of partnerships that we're working on right now. We have an active partnership for some new programs with Roaring Fork School District right now with Manacle and the Family Resource Center. So I would say, Paula, stay tuned. But I think that, we did learn some lessons about not trying to spread our talent and our team too thin and just kind of really barely be able to scratch the surface without having a more integrated presence with the school faculty, and so that we are familiar and trusted face instead of somebody who is just there intermittently. I think it gives us a chance to really talk with the faculty, the teachers, and the students about how we can be helpful. We really believe that these kinds of approaches, helping equip our kids with skills to just kind of cope with the stresses and the realities that happen every day at school, that this is probably the only place that they're actually learning these skills for a lot of kids that are in these schools. And it's not just, the focus of the programming that Aaron and Gabby have done is not just focused on the kids. It is really about pulling the families into this process. It's really about providing some coaching to the teachers and the faculty that don't have the same skill sets that we do about how to manage conflict with kids and de-escalate crisis or just high stress situations. So it's not a singular focus just on the kids. The kids hopefully have the greatest benefit and take away from this and impact, but it is really more of a systems approach for us to try to really contribute to the overall health of the community. So I hope that makes sense. But yeah, more to come on our efforts to really look at where are some other funding streams so that we can actually amplify our partnerships with some of the other schools. Great,
thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Deborah.
Okay. And I don't want to confuse the issue because this is marijuana excise tax funding, but I did want to let you guys know that I am having a very initial conversation with Rob Stein tomorrow about the potential use of tobacco tax fund to expand mental health programs within the schools and some of the other schools. He's trying to do it really throughout all the schools. You guys, last year, you did give, I can't remember how much, but to help build a mental health facility in the high school. So I just wanted to let you know that those conversations are happening too. And once they're a little further along, I think I'd like to maybe try to merge them, bring Rob in to talk to you guys. And that would be, I think, for 2022 though. So just FYI, there's other stuff going on.
All right. Shelley, go ahead.
I'd just like to say thank you very much to Mindsprings. I think these are valuable programs and it's great whatever we can do. If we can use this funding to help keep our youth healthy in the community, I think that's really valuable. And I guess I had more of a question though for Deborah on the funding. Are we fully funded in this program for 2021 in the
Yes, we
budget? Okay. And I realized this, another part of the program that I really liked, in addition to the counseling and that type of support, were the passes to the community center, which were completely disrupted by COVID. So I'm hoping that that can be renewed again for 2021 and going forward, and possibly even fund more of that out of the tobacco tax.
that funding is also in the budget. I think it's just, critical that the community center stay open in order to be able to use it. And just
Right.
as our COVID restrictions ratchet up, it also impacts the community center.
Great. Yes. So thank you very much to Mindsprings.
Any other questions or comments? I just have a few questions. I do remember when this was originally approved, when he decided to go down this road, we were pretty specific about it being a Glenwood Springs revenue and Glenwood Springs tax, and it benefiting Glenwood Springs resident. And I remember at the time, this is a couple of years ago, I think it was before Tony, Paul, and Charlie got on, but there was conversation about, how Two Rivers is a majority of students not living in Glenwood Springs. They're mostly from out of the district. And I think, at least the last time I had familiarity with Yampa, that was the case there. I personally have a little bit of a problem using taxpayer dollars to fund programs in a religious institution, as is the case with St. Stephen's, though I have nothing wrong with or against St. Stephen's personally. I think they're great. I have friends that teach there. But I think that is somewhere originally we said, this go to benefit the school district, because we know that the kids in the school district at GSES, at Silver's Elementary, and a large majority of the kids at Riverview are Glenwood Springs citizens and residents. And so I'm a little, I guess I'm a little tempered with St. Stephen's in that these are Glenwood Springs residents, even though I do have anxiety about the religious institution and taxpayer dollars going to that. But I guess, I know this is a presentation, we're not being asked to make any decisions on it, but how did that evolve from that direction that was given a year or two ago to not focus on that and to focus on Glenwood Springs residents, to almost exclusively now focusing on institutions that don't serve Glenwood Springs residents, and St. Stephen's again being the weird one?
I can try to speak to that, or Hans can.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I started this school-based programming, I think, when this started 2.5, 3 years ago. And at the time when I started, the schools that I were told to start in were Two Rivers Community School, St. Stephen's Catholic School, and Riverview. So I actually did start at Riverview. And the reason that Riverview ended was because they decided that they wanted to hire a prevention specialist, and they had a higher need that I couldn't fulfill. So I had that conversation with their therapist, and I moved on. And so it kind of opened up into me staying in St. Stephen's and staying in Two Rivers because I had developed good relationships there. I've never thought about it the way that you just presented it. I agree with you that a lot of the families that attend Two Rivers specifically live down Valley in Newcastle and in Rifle. So I think, at least from my perspective, St. Stephen's was always one of the schools that was on the list, at least when this program started. I could be incorrect about that, but that's how I remember it. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents from my perspective.
Yeah, and I think this goes back to 2.5 years ago. I think, Shelley and Steve might be able to recall a little bit better. And again, my discomfort with St. Stephen's has nothing to do. Those are Glenwood Springs citizens. They will at some point be Glenwood Springs adults, hopefully, and they'll be in the high school at some point in their public school. So that's just a weird thing with me. But I would like staff to work with you guys to see what is the best use of Glenwood Springs taxpayer money for Glenwood Springs kids and Glenwood Springs residents. And that That would just be my personal desire. I don't know if anybody else has would back me in that direction for staff. I don't want to get into or litigate it tonight or make a big deal. I want to turn it over to staff and say you can work towards that. But if no one else cares, then say la vie. We're on to item number 12. Go ahead, Shelley.
I guess I wasn't aware of the stats on Two Rivers Community School. I know some people, in our neighborhood whose kids go there. So I think of it as a Glenwood Springs school, but again, I wasn't really aware of that. The same with Yampa. Yampa's always been a Glenwood Springs part of the high school here. Again, though, I haven't seen specific stats on the students. So I shared your concerns, for instance, with GSES or the Glenwood Springs Middle School not having programming there, but I see that more of, just wanting to understand the need at those schools. And it sounds like Roaring Fork School District is working on addressing that through other funding. So I guess I don't have your same concerns for considering those as not serving Glenwood Springs, but I wouldn't mind learning more about it. I just wasn't up to date on those stats.
Yeah, and part of this is, RE2 had an opportunity to pass the bond initiative. We've also, as a school district, property taxed ourselves in 2011 to provide more continuous funding for our school district. And therefore, a lot of kids have opted into different programs in our schools. So I just want to make sure the taxpayers are being represented. But if no one else cares, then I'll be out on my oar, and I'm not gonna. I don't care to rally the troops or anything. So, does anybody else have anything else? All right, thank you very much. Oh, Ingrid, go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you so much for what you guys do. I think ultimately, especially right now, these services and this commitment to our future generations is so important. So thank you all so much.
Absolutely. All right, thanks, Han. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Gabrielle. Please don't take my comments as anything other than I am incredibly supportive of what you guys do and the fact that you're doing it. It's apparently just my own issues. You're fantastic. Thank you.
I appreciate everything. Thanks.
All right. Next item on the agenda. If I can bring it up.
Item number
12. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate that for this. Consideration of special use permit for retail marijuana establishment in the M2 mixed use central zoning district in Glenwood Meadows pursuant to municipal code section, blah, blah, blah. All right. So who's presenting this? An
Quickly
attendee.
before they present it, I think we are, isn't this the second time around for this one? Or no, I'm sorry.
No.
On this one, sorry.
I think that this is, I was going to say Trent and Gretchen probably should both be
Okay, there we
over.
go. All right, sorry. I was thinking of the other license.
Hey, good evening, Mayor and City Council. Trent Hyatt with Community Development here to present this item to you this evening. I'm going to share my screen with you. But in the meantime, Mr. Mayor, if you will promote John Diet, Chris Hawkins, David Ballode, Paul Glenn, and Jessica Scardina.
Oh boy. Okay.
I can repeat
Scardina.
that.
Yep, I got Jessica
repeat that if you
Scardina.
need.
I got, who's the Chris one? Chris Hawkins?
Yes, Chris Hawkins.
Yep, got him.
John Diet.
John at Kind Castle. Yes, if that is the same John we're talking about, I think I've done that. Who else?
David Ballode. And Paul Glenn.
Is David Ballode at 970-734-63? Is that David? Because I don't see his name up here.
No, Your Honor, he may not be on the meeting, so thank you.
Okay, and who's the last person?
Paul Glenn.
Paul Glenn. Does anybody else see Paul Glenn that I'm not? Does anybody see Paul Glenn in the attendees? Or has he already been promoted?
He may be joining late too. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll go with what we got.
All right. So just to get started, the subject property, oh, excuse me. That's a less than 2 week in our household feral cat. So he's still learning manners like me. But the subject property is on mixed use core M2 district, but more importantly, it's a lot that's located within the Glenwood Meadows zoning and development plan area. So kind of subject to its own design standards and requirements. As you can see, most of the surrounding property to the north and west are also zoned M2. And brown on the map there, you'll see some property that's zoned residential high density. To the north and east, parcels are zoned resort district. That would be the location of the hotels out at Glenwood Meadows. And then to the south would be hillside preservation, some of the park space dedicated with the original development. So what's proposed tonight? Approximately 4,500 square foot, 2-story building, 3,300 square feet of which will be for a retail marijuana establishment doing business as the Kind Castle, as well as approximately 800 square feet that will be reserved for a future retail tenant. Section 70-2030E Table 30.1 outlines the retail marijuana establishment as a special use in the M2 zone. Therefore, why we're here speaking with you tonight. Section 70-3030E11 outlines the review criteria for retail marijuana establishment uses. B being the requirement for a city and state license related to the use. C, that they shall not be located within 500 feet of any existing public or private schools. This particular location is located over 1,700 feet from Yampa Mountain High School, so well over that number. And just to be clear, not to be confused with the regulations that you passed earlier tonight, since this application was filed prior to those being approved and or becoming effective, we're operating under the current regs that we're at now. 2, 900 feet of another retail marijuana establishment. The closest in proximity to this location is actually the Green Dragon on Devereaux Road, which is over 1,800 feet away. And it shall be required as a permitted use within the zone district, which in M2 it is. D, the hours of operation shall be from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. D2, signed permit shall be obtained. D3, that no more than 25% of the licensed premises shall be used for the storage of the product. In this case, we're looking at approximately 9%. And there shall be no discernible odor outside the boundaries of the licensed premises. And, I will note that when it comes to odor nuisances, we do have a condition that is recommended that will monitor that over time. However, we have generated more complaints from the cultivation facilities and none from our retail or medical facilities in town. Also has to adhere to the special use permit criteria that are outlined in 70-60-50E3E2, and that's compatibility with surrounding area. As I mentioned previously, you have some lodging in this area, as well as multifamily residential, retail, banking, office, and other service-oriented uses for which this is compatible with. The impacts have been adequately minimized. There, again, the potential odor issue that we have addressed via the condition, as well as some comments from the engineering department that address traffic and access to the site because of its close proximity to the adjacent intersection along Wolfson and East Market Drive. There's been some conversations about proper mitigation for that, whether it be a right in, right out to this location, or even a 4-way stop at that intersection to accommodate this increase in traffic. Consistent with the general purpose of the code, it appears that it is consistent with the promoting orderly and efficient development and regulating uses based on their impacts. E2-4, comply with all applicable standards of the code. We do expect compliance with the Glenwood Meadows Zoning and Development Plan. The applicant has worked and provided multiple revisions along the way to show that they can comply with that. And just to give you an idea of some of the architectural renderings as well as the site layout there, that they are meeting those or exceeding them in some areas of the code. 5, conformance with the comprehensive plan. This lot is designated mixed use in parks and open space, kind of split zoned. However, it was recently rezoned, so it's clear that the intent of this is for a mixed use residential or commercial type of business. It does seem to address numerous community goals outlined, such as sustainable economic development, maintaining the city as the regional center of our county, preserving small town character, convenient transportation, infill development, social diversity, as well as preserving natural resources. Much of that being based on the ability for infill development to utilize existing services and utilities. And 6, minimizes adverse impacts to health and safety and welfare. We have not identified any issues associated therewith. We've received some comments based on the application originally submitted. However, I will note again that the applicant has either addressed many of these or plans to via conditions that we've included. Electric outline the need to comply with our line extension and the potential conflict between the transformer location and proposed bicycle parking. Engineering, it stated that a utility plan is needed. Again, this is kind of some of the details that were not addressed during the review of the special use permit, but will need to be addressed with the building permit and prior to operation. And Public Works identified the need for various line extensions to the site that may be costly because of their debts on adjacent properties. Transportation manager outlined a need for bicycle parking, for which they have provided, the location we may work with a little bit. Adjacent property owners that have provided support for this application are Richard Myers, Mark Masich, Navin Diamond, Steve Schoflick, and we did receive a petition from 19 additional adjacent property owners and or citizens of the city, and as well as one letter in opposition from Amy Ruggie. For your action items tonight, section 706030G1D outlines this is left from the Planning and Zoning Commission, but you should approve with conditions, or deny the application, or continue it to ask for additional information from the applicant or staff. The Planning and Zoning Commission did vote unanimously 5-0 to recommend approval to City Council. Staff recommends approval as well of the action item 1 based on the findings and conditions on pages 1 and 2 of your staff report. Do you have any questions of me before we move to the applicant's presentation?
Ingrid, go ahead.
So historically, we saw comments from the different departments in the city, and I see engineering and I saw public works, but I didn't see fire and I didn't see police. Is that historically they don't comment, or I maybe it's just where we are now?
I would say traditionally we do not receive as many comments from those two departments, and we did not on this application.
Okay.
Paula, go ahead.
Trent, a couple of things. Will there be any additional engineering required of this building because of the instability of the soils on that part of town? Just like we had with MOC and the Meadows and Lowe's, and do they have to do anything as far as being aware of that kind of unstable soil, like alluvial fan stuff? Sorry.
Yeah, some of the debris flow and rockfall considerations have been mitigated by the overall development in Glenwood Meadows, but they will be required to adhere to whatever recommendations are made by their geotechnical engineer. And I think they did do a preliminary study, and I don't believe there was anything out of the ordinary of expectations for the development itself, but they will have to adhere to that, and that would be reviewed further by the engineering department prior to a building permit.
Okay. And then are there any other building projects or anything going on that might also impact that intersection, or traffic will be coming in and out and they can't do a U-turn back to, or they need to do a U-turn back to get into the facility if it's northbound, if I remember right? I mean, what else is kind of coming up that we should be aware of, just so we know?
We do have some significant development proposals, no official applications received yet. That's why, in my opinion, I would probably lean towards the latter recommendation of a four-way stop at this intersection, because that would likely be required for future development anyhow. So, we do expect some major residential development in the vicinity. And because of the age of the initial traffic impact analysis developed for Glenwood Meadows, going on 20 years now, there will be probably updates needed to those for those major residential developments. I don't think there's as many concerns from the engineering department with this proposal, but we are anticipating some and further analysis.
And one last question, and this might be after the next presentation, but in reading through this stuff, there were conflicting things on transporting and delivery of marijuana. One said yes, they would be delivering, and one said no, they're not planning to deliver marijuana. And I just wanted clarity on that when we get to that point, and that might be for them.
I think it probably would be better suited for them, Paula.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? I promoted Chief Darris just because I think Ingrid brought up a good question, and I know it's maybe not a formal part, but I would like to hear from Chief Darris if there was anything that he had concerns about on this.
Good evening, Council. No, I don't think we have any particular concerns about this particular site and its location. We did have an opportunity to review some of the plans, and at this point we don't, but I certainly appreciate the opportunity to chime in on these developments as they present themselves.
Thanks, Chief. All right, any other questions for the applicant or staff? Does the applicant want to contribute?
Yes, please. Good evening. Thank you. We're very excited to be here in front of you. It's been a bit of a haul to get here, understand the city processes and respect them. Just to answer the questions right out of the gate, there's not any plans for delivery at this point in time. If the city adopts a delivery ordinance, then we'd be involved in that conversation, assuming we get an approval, but there's no plans for that at this point in time. Just going to go through the presentation and then glad to answer any questions. You're familiar with the site. Just quick, we have a pretty great team for this site. We've got PSTM Architecture and Planning is doing the design, Uncompahgre Engineering for the civil engineering. We've got Vicente Sederberg helping us out with any legal considerations. Apex Consulting Engineers is helping us out with the transportation engineering on the project, and the Stars to Stone Surveying is helping us out with the survey work. So as far as the site goes, I think you're familiar with it, fairly flat site overall. There's a little bit of a non-exclusive easement in the back here that's associated with Flat Tops View Drive. The site plan itself, I'd just like to go over this a little bit. We purposefully located the store on this side of the site for two reasons. One, to get a good distance from the open space and community garden over here in the rec center. And then two, because that allowed us to push the access drive as far to the east as possible. And what we've done just to further buffer the community garden, we're proposing a 6 foot high, in this area, basically it's a 6 to 8 foot high fence. In this area, we're going to shorten it down if there's any sight distance issues, and then a very extensive landscape buffer to the parking lot. An extensive amount of landscaping.
I hate to interrupt, but you're pointing to things and we don't have a screen that just shows us what you're pointing to. I didn't know if you wanted to share your screen.
Sorry.
So we could...
Oh, sorry. I thought my screen.
Oh, that's all right. I read it, so I kind of know what you're talking about, but we're not able to see what you're pointing
I thought my screen was already shared. Sorry about that. I hit the button. It must not have gone through. Can you see it now, sir?
Yes, thank you.
We can. I thought you were just being hypothetical about what you're pointing to. And
yeah, I'm just waving my hands in the air like planners do. Sorry about that.
Was that your question as well? Is that why you had a hand up? Okay, great. We're on the same page now.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Zoom's fun. So again, if over on this side, we put the store on the west side of the site, and for an extensive landscape buffer over here, and we're proposing a wood fence, opaque fence with an extensive landscape buffer in this location. Really extensive site landscaping throughout the site. We've got more than adequate parking with 16 parking spaces. Bike parking in this location. We do plan on, assuming our traffic engineer says it's needed, installing a four-way stop. And we would like to be able to get full turning movements for both direction of traffic if possible. But we have to work that out with our engineer and the city engineering staff just to make sure this all works and it's very safe. In terms of this site, some of the additional landscaping, you see these different areas. This is basically by the front door. This is on the northwest east side of the parking lot. This is back by the trash enclosure. This is along the front of the store, et cetera. So it's a pretty extensive plan with, you look at the quantity of materials and the overall buffering. We think it's going to fit nicely into the Glenwood Meadows neighborhood. Here's the civil plan. Just some slight grading to accommodate the parking lot and flatten it out back here. We will be utilizing the overall drainage and detention system for Glenwood Meadows, tying into a storm drain at this location. As far as the store design, I'm not sure if this will be the first stick-built marijuana store on the West Slope, but I want to claim that fame now if it's there. But it's not a cheap endeavor. So we really want a very high quality, high-end store for the Glenwood Meadows community. And that's really being dictated by the Glenwood Meadows development and annexation agreement that we have to meet. So a very high level of architectural design to ensure compatibility combined with the landscaping buffering. We really think this store fits nicely into the neighborhood. This floor plan itself, here's the future retail that Trent discussed. This would be the main retail level where people come in, a big waiting room out in this area, and then the retail. And then you go upstairs, and we've actually got a weighing and handling area in this location. I just want to make it really clear that there will be packaging of products on the site. There's a little bit of conflicting information in the packet, but the air quality and odor mitigation is really extensive, which I'll talk about in a minute. Here's the manager's office, and then there's the storage and safe room and security equipment, and just a lower level roof. As far as the criteria, it will be compatible with surrounding area development. It's in an intense commercial mixed use area. There's an open space buffer to the east to the community center, and we're providing that landscape buffer I showed you earlier to the community garden and that fence. It's an attractive commercial building. It's about a 99-foot setback to the eastern property line and about 143 feet to the community garden. We're also not going to do a pole mounted sign, just building mounted signs. There's not going to be any depiction of marijuana leaf or green crosses or signs advertising, on signs advertising the store. The residence in the north, it's about 135 feet from the facility, but it turns out this isn't an issue, and you'll understand why in a little bit, just in terms of support. Glenwood Apartments to the south, it's about 190 feet away. Lofts at Red Mountain, 75 feet away. The odor mitigation, it's always a concern, and I'm glad Trent has said it hasn't been an issue in these stores. We're basically going to be providing about 2 times as much odor mitigation than required with these air purifier units. And again, it'll be state-of-the-art security fire and carbon monoxide systems. We're more than happy to meet with the police chief and work through any security issues and share our security plan, but it's going to be a pretty robust plan. Here's my biggest gauge of compatibility, I think. When you look at a project like this, we have the support of almost every major developer in the area and the support of the owners of the regional shopping center, plus the 2 hotels to the north. And they believe the store is very compatible and desirable. And that's pretty massive in my opinion. The store impacts are going to be minimized with odor mitigation. Traffic mitigation will be as per the engineers. The traffic study will be updated to address site access, and that we've provided more than adequate parking. Basically, we estimate 11 spaces are required, and we're providing 16. We also are consistent with the general purpose and intent of the development code. Store will protect the public health, safety, and welfare. It provides for integrated development within the city and Glenwood Meadows, more importantly. Housing has already been provided in Glenwood Meadows, so we don't need to meet that standards. And the use-specific standards are really set up to ensure no adverse impacts for stores like this. And we meet the applicable requirements of the code, as Trent pointed out earlier, and the natural hazards have been mitigated with the overall development. The license application has been submitted. We're meeting the buffer requirement with 2 times the separation. The M2 zone district allows the use, and we will comply with the operational requirements for procurement, display, dispensing, labeling, sanitation, and security. And I just want to let you know, each of these stores, these are difficult entitlements, and there's going to be an operational book for the employees that are standards that if they fail to meet it, there are going to be serious repercussions for that. I leave that to my client to decide what it is, but given how important these entitlements are, I think it's going to be fairly severe for non-compliance. That would be my recommendation, at least. The hours of operation will meet the city's requirements. The sign permit will be obtained. We do comply with the storage area limitations and odor mitigations met. We also meet all the zone district dimensional standards. We will meet drainage requirements. Roads and traffic are mitigated, and engineering will be provided. We will have to, meet the requirements of a geotech report for the building foundation design. And we're very aware of the debris flow and other geohazards in the area, and understand those are mitigated by the local metro district. As far as the comprehensive plan, it's envisioned, commercial development is envisioned in this area. The scale of this facility really helps maintain the small town character here, because you come into this area and you have big hotel on the right, you have the Lobster Red Mountain, which is a big building, and then you have a smaller retail building that really helps maintain, in our opinion, the small town character in a very intensive mixed-use neighborhood. And I think this is a really important point. This is a walkable retail destination. There's a lot of residential development in the area. There's a lot of hotel development in the area. So this reduces traffic traveling outside of Glenwood Meadows to where people can walk and ride their bikes here. They can shop in the area as well. Ideally, we're going to be drawing traffic from regional shoppers already driving into the area to shop. And the store provides for a lot of synergy for all of Glenwood Meadows development. And again, it's a great transitional site in terms of scale and a very attractive storefront development. The store integrates with the city's multimodal transportation system with sidewalks, bicycles, and there's a bus stop just down the street. Economic development, it will create an opportunity for a new well and basically livable wages for about 12 to 15 people. And it's also, more importantly, this is a significant investment. This is costing a lot of money to put it in here. So there's going to be employment for construction and the trades and the community overall. Again, we think the store will enhance the regional shopping center. It will promote long-term sustainable economic development. It really helps promote Glenwood Springs as the regional tourism and retail center, and more importantly, Glenwood Meadows. It preserves small town character, as we already talked. We address transportation, and it directs development to locations that's cost effective to serve. Infrastructure is immediately available to the site. It might cost a little bit to get the taps to the site, but we understand those costs. It also supports social diversity and preserves natural resources. I just want to touch on a little bit about diversity. This is from Richard Myers, the owner of Red Mountain Lofts. One of the strengths of Glenwood Meadows is its vision to create a walkable mixed-use community that provides a great variety of retail stores, services, and restaurants. This vision is primarily what attracted us to invest tens of millions of dollars in Glenwood Meadows. And that's a statement from his correspondence of support, the email of support. So it reduces traffic, encourages pedestrianization at an appropriate scale. We'll address all the departmental comments that we get as Trent already made. Fire code, drainage, geotechnical, and the traffic study will address the electrical department concerns, the transportation department concerns. And then just want to reiterate, we're 1,700 feet away from a school, and we're also almost 1,800 square feet away from the Green Dragon. And even under the proposed buffers, I think that you just adopted tonight under second reading, we would meet those if they apply, but they don't, because you have to evaluate this under the current rules. But we just wanted to show you that this site is still valid even under your newer regulations. As far as support, I already talked about the owner of Lofts at Red Mountain, Nevin Diamond, CEO of Stonebridge Companies and managing partner for Residence Inn and Courtyard by Marriott Hotels. These are two of the hotels located to the north of the proposed store. They're in support of this store. Glenwood Meadows LLC, Robert McGregor, he's been great to work with. Glenwood Meadows developer and owner overall is very supportive of this. There's been about 18 petitions. I didn't count Mark's twice, but there was Mark's email, and 18 plus 2 new petitions today, so about 20 total. The one negative comment about the rec center, city regulations don't require a buffer from the rec center, but we understand the sensitivity there, and we actually designed the site to accommodate that and have a buffer to the community garden and to the recreation center. We're not going to do pole mounted signs. So we're being really sensitive in the design, and we think we're going to be good neighbors. And just in closing, I just wanted to go over Steve Schoflick's Miller Real Estate Investments quote. He's the developer, manager, and owner of the Glenwood Meadows Shopping Center. And here's this quote: "We believe adding a quality retail marijuana operation, as previously authorized by the citizens of Colorado and Glenwood Springs, will add to the synergy and success of Glenwood Meadows as a destination shopping experience. We understand Kind Castle is such a quality operator and has carefully planned their facility to meet all state and local regulations, including rigorous security and odor control. We believe that adding synergistic uses to Glenwood Meadows benefits all the retail operators, further enabling Glenwood Meadows to grow its sales tax base." So it's great having all that support. We understand under COVID protocols, we most likely won't get an action tonight. Would love it. That'd be an early Christmas gift, but understand you probably have to continue this to your next meeting, and would love to hear any concerns or questions this evening so we can address them for you and hopefully get an approval at December 17th.
All right. Questions for either staff or the applicant? That was a very comprehensive presentation then, Mr. Hawkins.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Yes.
See no questions. I will turn it over to open public comment from anybody from the public who would like to speak. Here we go. Mr. McGregor, go ahead. Unmute yourself. It's bottom left-hand corner. There you go.
Hello, is that good?
Yes. Yes, sir.
You can hear clearly. Yeah, I just wanted to amplify that excellent presentation by Chris and just take it up to the higher level of what Glenwood Meadows contributes. I mean, a lot of you are familiar with this, but it is more than 1/4 of the sales tax dollars in the city. So it is a major economic engine. And this is the one area of town where we haven't seen diversity with this kind of product offering. I realize there's been debate as to numbers of shops around town, and there was some really excellent debate earlier in this meeting. And one of the points raised by Councillor Willman was the reasonable needs of the neighborhood being met. And in no way are they being met for all the hundreds of rooftops that have already been created and more on the way. In the past, some 500 units have been approved for this site. 200 have been built in the last year or so. And 85, I believe, have been approved by this council. That'll get started in the spring. So we really do have a situation where the neighborhood is not being served. At the same time, you can see that all the major businesses there have come out in favor of this. And I would urge you to support this diversity. The the sales tax dollars we're contributing from the meadows certainly help support some of the others' community goals. The number's actually in excess of 60 million since we built the center has now flowed to the city. And we just feel this is another additional attraction. The traffic is really one of the big things, I think, that won over the planning and zoning. And again, there was a great shout out for tonight by the mayor for the people who put in all the time on the boards and commissions. I would share with you that they actually had to sort of listen to this twice because there was a whole pre-meeting on whether Glenwood Meadows was a suitable place to even apply for a special use permit for pot. And there was unanimous support there. There was unanimous support for the actual special use permit. That together with staff's work on this and their support, I'm hoping will extend to your support. I think we do meet the future and more stringent rules that
Mr. McGregor, I'm sorry, Mr. McGregor, we have 3 minutes for public comment. So if you could give maybe some last thoughts.
Great. Yeah, just to wrap that up, to say that, thank you for supporting us, looking at it and applying the rules that you have come up with, which I believe are met foursquare on this. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Sorry to interrupt you and make you lose your train of thought there. Is there any other public comment? All right. Seeing none, I'll going once, going twice. I'll close public comment and bring it back to council for further questions and or comments. I have a question, Trent, real quick. Is this facility also going to be subject to the 1.5% PIF that the other facilities are?
Correct. It is within the area subject to the additional tax.
Okay. Ingrid.
Super quickly, does that tax expire at some point, and do we have a date on that?
Let me, it does. It's actually not a tax, to be super clear. It's public improvement fee. I mean, it's important. It's an important distinction because it's in place by private covenant of the developers. And actually, I'm drawing a blank. I think it is another 5 or 6 years. I can't remember exactly.
2025.
2020.
Yeah, 2025.
2026.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's kind of the deal on that. I don't know if I can help with anything else, but.
No, I actually think that Trent and maybe the applicant would better answer the other question, and that is, of all the surrounding community, of the surrounding businesses that offered letters of support, are any of those, do you know if any of those are locals and citizens of Glenwood and or surrounding communities, or are they all out of town investors and owners? Do you know?
Ingrid, that is a good kind of question or clarification. You know, most of those names that were listed on my slide were actually property owners that are not local. However, the petitions did include local residents.
Okay. Yeah, I saw those. I actually, from selling real estate for years, I was looking at some of the addresses, and some of them are not actually in city limits, but I think it's a moot point. Ultimately, you did have some locals in the surrounding Roaring Fork Valley that supported this application. So that wraps it up for my questions.
Tony, go ahead.
I would make a motion to approve Ordinance 15/20, consideration of a special use permit for retail marijuana establishment in the M2 mixed use central core district in Glenwood Meadows pursuant to municipal code section 070030.030E11 with those changes that staff has recommended, those minor changes that Trent spoke about, if that's appropriate, Mr. Mayor.
I think this is a land use application that we have been in this COVID environment doing 2 meetings on. So
right, but I said on first reading, Carl, is what I was.
It's actually not an ordinance. So
okay, I apologize.
No worries.
So Carl, are we continuing this for public comment to the next meeting? Okay.
Okay. I think with that, Although I appreciate that, Tony, get on top of that. We will save that motion for 2 weeks.
Can I do it next time?
I will give you the floor. You make sure you get that hand up there.
So, Your Honor, if I could just ask, because we haven't heard from all the council members, are there any concerns with this store that we should be aware of at this time?
So usually what we have done is we reserve comments back. We take public comment, and I brought it back for additional questions, but usually we do our, concerns at the next meeting to allow for additional public comment. So if you're okay waiting for that until the December 17th meeting, you'll probably have a further questions, comments, or a vote.
Okay,
potentially.
thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hawkins, and everybody else that presented. Thank you, staff. All right, next.
Motion to continue, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, yeah. Tony, can I have a motion to continue?
I would move to continue it to the next date on the 17th of December.
I'll second.
All right, moved by Tony, seconded by Paula. All in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. Thank you again, guys. Next item is item number 14, Ordinance 28, an ordinance of the City Council of Mindsprings, Colorado, approving funds for fiscal year 2021.
Did we miss the hot springs?
Yeah, we
Did
have
we?
the hot springs.
Oh, man.
It's a big one. You can't skip that one.
There we go. Item number 13. Sorry. Let's do that one since that's what's up. Planning file 2720. This is the Iron Mountain Hot Springs. Sorry about that, Steve. Who needs to be promoted up here?
Mr. Mayor, this is Gretchen. I need you to promote Steve Beckley,
Yes.
Doug Flenty,
Yep.
Mike Foster,
Yep.
and Doug and Julie Pratt. They're probably together with Land Design Studios.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. So just for my own clarification, are you able to see my screen? It says
Yes.
planning file. Great. Super. Okay. Iron Mountain Hot Springs was originally approved in 2014. And as you all know, it consists of an entrance building with locker rooms and offices, a number of mineral pools, a concession area, mechanical building, and a 90-space parking lot. Iron Mountain Hot Springs proposes to expand south of the existing resort in this area down here, which will include a 12,000 square foot two-story entrance building, which will house offices, locker rooms, a restaurant, and retail use. They also propose to construct an enclosed pool, 10 new mineral pools, 4 private cabanas, each with their own small mineral pools, 3 new pools on the existing grounds, and an improved parking lot, an improved and expanded parking lot. And then they also plan to do a lot of riverbank restoration. Here's the site plan that shows the existing development here. This is the proposed expanded development here, the improved parking area in this location. Also, their plans show a future hotel on the site. Now, I just need to clarify that that is not part of this application. So this is a 100-room hotel that you'll see at some later date. So I just wanted to clarify that. Also, in this area here, Iron Mountain Hot Springs is working with the city to relocate an existing lift station that's on the site. So the review process, this expansion is actually an amendment of an existing major development. Your review considers how the expansion is consistent with the general purpose and intent of the code, with the dimensional and all other standards of the municipal code, the previous land use approval, and the comprehensive plan and other adopted city policies and plans. With regard to the first two criteria that address code compliance, we found that the project complied with all aspects of the code except for the enclosed pool building. The issue here was the roof line and the east building wall that exceeded the code allowed length without providing certain articulations. In this case, the owner proposes what's called an alternative equivalence compliance. It's quite a mouthful, but when we adopted the new code in 2018, we added this alternative compliance, which allows Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council to consider an alternate design that meets the overall intent of the code, but not the letter of the code. So in this case, the owner proposes to create an earthen roof that has about 12 to 8 inches of soil and is vegetated with native grasses and perennials and plants of that nature. So when considering the design alternative, the applicant is actually required to show that the proposed design meets certain criteria. The first two are that it achieves the intent of the code standard, and that the second one is that it advances the goals and policies of the code. In this case, the earthen roof, we found, met these criteria because it enhances visual and physical qualities of the city and the site, actually. It visually connects the building's interior with the exterior, and it is compatible with the surrounding natural environment. The third criteria is that it results in benefits to the community that are equal to or exceed the actual code requirement. Again, as far as we know, this is the first known earthen roof building in the city, so it is, in my estimation, quite unique. It helps to reduce the visual mass of the roof. It provides a softer appearance than a flat metal roof or even an asphalt roof would do. And it would not provide glare as a regular roof would. And then it blends in with the surrounding native landscaping. And then the final criteria is that it imposes no greater impacts on adjacent properties. And in this case, the east building wall, which is it faces the parking field, it is really only 5 feet to 7.5 feet tall. It is constructed of stone. So in my estimation, it actually appears much like a retaining wall would, natural retaining wall. So in summary, we found that the proposed alternative design was unique and it met the intent of the code requirement. One of the other criteria for the overall consideration of this expansion is compliance with several comprehensive plan goals. This development proposal expands an existing tourism or resort use and is supported in the comprehensive plan. Many goals here are shown on your screen. I'm not going to read them individually, but I will note that the last one, which is preserve natural resources, relates to the shoreline restoration plan that they've submitted. The plan actually enhances and preserves the river corridor environment. So you need to consider 2 action items. The first one is consideration of this major site architectural plan review, which would allow the expansion of the Iron Mountain Hot Springs. And the second one, it addresses the consideration of the alternative equivalence compliance request, which would, in essence, allow the earthen roof. The Planning and Zoning Commission conducted hearings on in October and November, and they unanimously recommended that council approve both action items. As is our process during these times, and as was touched on in the previous application, tonight we're going to hear the presentations and take initial public comment on this application. But to give people the most opportunity to comment, council will not vote on this item tonight. Instead, both action items are continued to December 17th, at which time we'll request that council take additional public comment and vote. And my final slide shows people how to provide comments. If they don't comment tonight, they can send me their comments via US mail to City Hall, or they can put their comments in the utility drop box at City Hall, or they can email me directly, and my email address is there on the screen. I would request, though, that if folks want to comment, if you could send me your comments by December 16th, that would be helpful. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and take any questions that you might have.
Charlie, go ahead.
Gretchen, thank you for the good presentation. There were a few questions I had when I went through the application. The first one is they're going to build a new entrance building, and it was unclear to me, is the old entrance building going to stay in place?
Yes, it is. It is going to stay in place.
Is that going to be repurposed, or as I thought I read something in the application, seemed to be the new entrance building would serve a different use within the development?
Well, again, I think I want to have Steve address that when it's his turn to talk. But I think I believe, if my memory serves correctly, that's always questionable, is that they intend to keep the locker rooms in the existing entrance building, and that it then will also house some offices. But again, I'll have Steve confirm.
That's fine. I can wait till then. Second question, and we just passed this riparian setback, and it sounds like they're going to be within that setback area.
Yes.
That we just
yeah. If you remember, sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh no, I was just going to say that yes, you did approve an ordinance recently. I think it was back in September, that amended the riparian setback regulations, and hot springs pools were exempted from, so hot springs pools were allowed to be constructed within that 35-foot setback. Oops. There was, sorry, go ahead.
So it's not we don't need an exception because the pools are allowed within that.
Yes, they are. There were some criteria, though, that the development of the hot springs pools don't further or degrade any of the water quality of the Colorado River, and that they maintain riparian vegetation and things like that. And the hot springs pool, Iron Mountain Hot Springs, has already gotten approval from the Army Corps of Engineers for their riparian plan, which includes a lot of restoration along their riverfront. And the past developments this whole area has been previously disturbed. So in my estimation, their riparian plan actually does improve significantly the existing riverfront.
third area question is the east wall on this alternate compliance. You said it's only 5 to 7 feet. You said it looks like a retaining wall, but that's a fairly long retaining wall, isn't it? I didn't see the exact length of the building, or maybe I missed it.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact length of the building. I just know that it exceeds the 50. So the 50 feet is the cutoff for providing certain articulation. But again, I felt with the stone construction and the fact that the roof is going to be vegetated, that it really does minimize the impact of a long building wall. Yeah.
Okay. And Doug, maybe you can address this if you're going to talk later. But if you have some kind of visual or some kind of a idea, so I can get an idea what it looks like. And the last issue was traffic. And I think I understood the traffic report, but I think I was going cross-eyed last night by the time I was reading it. Is it my understanding there's not going to be any traffic impact either at the intersection with Devereaux Road or the intersection with US 6 and 24?
Correct. The impact. So the Caverns Village, which is currently under construction, there were significant pedestrian improvements and improvements to Devereaux and Highway 6 that were associated with that development. And so this expansion of Iron Mountain Hot Springs didn't require additional mitigation. However, that said, when Iron Mountain Hot Springs comes in with this proposed 100-room hotel, then we're going to be looking at a traffic update to assess whether or not additional mitigation is required.
Okay, in that same vein, that maybe you answered my question. The last year when we had Two Rivers Park closed, we had some issues of pedestrians getting back and forth up and down that road. Yep. It's my understanding they're going to improve that sidewalk area. Is that going to include along Two Rivers Park?
Yep, it will. Iron Mountain Hot Springs is contributing. I think it's correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, when you get there, but I think it's up to $300,000 towards pedestrian improvements adjacent to Two Rivers Park and Devereaux Road.
And how much will that leave the city responsible for?
You know, I don't know. The sidewalk has not been designed at this point. So I can't speak to that at this point.
Okay, and so I saw Doug, you making some notes and stuff, so maybe you guys can address those questions as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Charlie. Paula, then Ingrid.
A couple of questions myself. Ingrid, is there any cost to the city in money or staff in moving this lift station, or what is that cost?
Well, that's a good question. I actually do not know. I believe that Iron Mountain Hot Springs is financing the move, but would ask Steve to clarify.
Okay. And the pool, the enclosed pool with the dirt roof, and just curious, I didn't really see how deep is that pool, because there was some mention of the travertine layer and it's 3 to 11 feet below the surface of the dirt, and it's different in various areas. I mean, how do they accommodate that? I mean, what's the depth of the pool? How's the weight of that roof make a difference on that travertine, or is that something for the developers to kind of address?
That's another excellent question. I know that Iron Mountain Hot Springs would do nothing to endanger that travertine layer, and Steve Beckley is really the authority on that matter.
And that dirt roof, which is fantastic looking, just let me say that, do we have to worry about the additional weight of having that kind of roof on a building?
I think they they will need to provide some structural details when we get to what's referred to as the construction plans level of this project. So assuming that you all approve this project on December 17th, their next step is to provide the detailed engineering and construction plans for the project. So we will be looking at that time.
Okay, great. And Charlie asked my questions about traffic. I was concerned about 6 and 24 and Devereaux and the increased traffic, but it sounds like you guys have been looking at that. So thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Paula. Ingrid.
So humor me why I asked more planning and zoning background questions, but the goal of the major site and architectural plan review was a code opportunity for an applicant to come before they want to, before they invested a significant amount in the big picture and instead get just a preliminary approval to start moving through the process. With that in mind, I'm just curious why at this time we're also looking at that the roof with the alternative equivalence compliance and why that's coming up at this stage in the game. And also to kind of throw a wrench in it a little bit, do you anticipate any concerns moving forward with other variances or things that might pop up in the long run?
We looked at the details of so I'm going to answer your last question first regarding the variances. So we looked at the details of this project and did not find any variances that would be implicated. Now, that said, if when we get to the construction plans level, which is an administrative review, and they provide the details of the project, if the project doesn't comply with, for example, the engineering standards, then we'll either go into negotiations to ensure the compliance, or they will have to come back before the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council to request a variance.
Okay.
I don't see that as an issue, but it's always sort of looming out there. With regard to the alternative equivalence compliance at this point, it's all part of the overall development review application.
Mm-hmm.
So it is appropriate to address it at this point because if they don't, then they're into redesigning this entire building to meet the letter of the code.
Okay.
If that makes any sense.
It does. Yeah, it does. So then my last question is that you showed us a drawing that included, and I understand that it's a proposed 100 bedroom hotel, but ultimately it looks more comprehensive than past renderings of the site on a whole. And I'm curious if one of the conditions, and maybe this is a better question for the applicant, but ultimately I'm curious when we might see a master plan for the Iron Mountain Hot Springs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in your application, one of the tabs showed a master, I think it was tab B. They actually did provide what they referred to as a master plan, which showed the layout of the existing
exhibit
hot springs.
Master plan.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. I was opening them, but I didn't recognize it as such.
That's okay. That's all right.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's great to see. It's nice to see everything come together. Thank you. That was my last question.
Sure.
Any other questions for staff? All right. We'd love to hear from the applicant.
Hello, this is Doug Pratt with the Land Studio. Julie and I are here with the rest of our team. Steve Beckley is here from Iron Mountain Hot Springs with Doug Flunchy. Mike Foster, the architect, is here to talk through some of the architectural components. Just to also let you know, Derek Walter was a civil engineer, and Chris Hale worked on these plans as well. I think I've got everybody there, but just wanted to let you know kind of what all of our roles have been. We've been planners and landscape architects working with Iron Mountain Hot Springs to put this package together. It is architectural site plan review. So Ingrid, I know you were talking a little bit about architecture and why you're seeing some of this stuff now, because it's not only site plan review for this project, but it's also architectural plan review, some of the preliminary stages of that. So we've got a brief presentation, really more graphics about the projects to just kind of explain some of the components. I know you've all read your packets, so you're probably already aware of this, but if I could share my screen, we can run through that as a team, and then we'll be available for questions after that. Okay, I'm assuming y'all can see screen at this point.
We're good, Doug.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to talk about the master plan briefly, and then Steve will get into some more site-specific stuff, Steve Beckley. So the master plan is kind of over on the right here. I'm just going to, I think you can see my cursor. The new, well, actually, I'm going to start with Caverns Village. So you all looked at Caverns Village a while ago and approved architectural site plan review for Caverns Village. So that's over in this corner of the site, and it's currently under construction. At the time that we did Caverns Village, this is just a little bit of a reminder, there were some parking configurations out here, which were beyond kind of what was approved in the original 94 spaces that were approved for Iron Mountain Hot Springs. At that point, I think you asked us to put together the master plan so you could see everything on one map. So this is kind of that document. I did not include on my master plan the future hotel in as much detail as you saw on some of the architectural and civil drawings, just because as a planning document, that is kind of a future piece, but it will be located here. So at high level, this is a configuration of parking. There are about 94 spaces initially approved, 139 spaces added, so 233 spaces total. The new pools that Gretchen was referring to, as they are located in this master plan, there are 3 new pools here that are in the existing area of the facility. There are 10 new pools south of that, adjacent to the new entry building. So the new entry building is here in plan view, and this is it up on the left-hand corner of this sheet. The new enclosed pool is here. Mike Foster can talk a little bit more dimensionally about this and structurally about the components of this building as you had questions. But this is the new enclosed pool, and south of the enclosed pool are 4 cabanas with some smaller pools within each of those. So those are kind of the overall components. Steve has very good explanation of what will be retained in the existing entry building and locker rooms. So he will go through all of that. I just wanted to briefly talk through the pieces of this at a master plan level, and then the rest of our team will get into more of the site details and architectural details, and then I'll come back at the end to talk about landscape. So with that, Steve, if you want to jump in.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, perfect. So the existing building will remain in place. It is, the lockers will be the same. The office space will be the same. Just our entry will not be an entry anymore, which is relatively undersized and is hard to use. So everybody will enter from the new building. And if you're going to be utilizing the older pools, 5 years old, and the existing facility, you'll actually go to the locker rooms over there. And then if you'll be using the new facility, which is adult only, you'll be using the lockers that are in the new building. And you'll be able to exit through either building, but if you're in the existing facility, more likely you'll exit through the existing building. So the building is still being completely utilized for the facility. It's just undersized for the operation. So go on to the next slide. So
good, see.
These are the red hash marks, I believe, is the original 94 spaces that we were permitted, and we've expanded those to the the 230, I think, was it 234, Doug?
233.
233 new spaces. So you'll see that the green space is the area that we're expanding with the new landscape and the new building and the new pools, and the blue hash marks is the expanded parking in place. And if you would notice, we've actually modified where the driveway comes in, and how that comes into the property. So this is the first floor of the building. As you come into the new building, there will be a new check-in area, which is much more appropriately sized for our facility. Included in the entry building or entry room will be a laundry facility and office. So right now we send all our laundry out, and this will allow us to basically just washing towels. And then if you elect to go to the existing facility, you would go out the doors to the existing facility and over to the existing locker room. If you elect to use the new facility, you go in and go down the stairs or down the elevator to the lower floor, which will have the locker rooms. On this floor, there's also a larger retail area for swimsuits and different things that we'll be selling in association with the facility. And there will be an indoor restaurant, and at this point, it's just planned for people that are on the facility and not for outside people coming in to use the restaurants. The restaurant's only for people that are actually within the facility. And then off the restaurant, we have decks that are going to be overlooking the river. In the lower level, we have a men's and women's locker room, and then also all the mechanical room for the mineral pools is located within this building. So over here is when we built the first facility, we realized we really undersized our mechanical space. So this gives us a lot more room to handle the new facility. Now, the one nice thing that this building, if you've been to our existing facility, we're using all the same design criteria. So similar, the same roof, the same siding, the same interior design. So we'll be very much similar to what we've already built in the existing building. So this new building will be almost identical. So you can see that the same trusses are there. The siding in the old building was actually made out of an old redwood tank that we found that came from the CMC up on Spring Hill or up by the CMC campus. And we can't find any more redwood like that, so we're going to go to a different siding, but it will look the same as the siding that we have. The windows are the same, doors are the same, so everything else is very similar to what we have. So this would be as you enter the building into the entrance facility under the main floor. And this is a side view of the building, and you see the decks and the entrance. And this is the back of the building. This is what would be facing the river. So the top elevation is facing the river. So you'll see the restaurant will be to the right and the gift shop would be to the left. And then this is the other side view. So this is kind of a spatial plan for the building. And go ahead to the next one. Mike Foster, do you want to speak to this building?
Yeah, my name is Mike Foster. I'm with Triumph Architecture, and this is the standalone pool building that we were talking about a little bit ago. One of the questions was, how long is that east wall? And as we're looking at this plan here, the east wall is actually up the page or to the top of the page. And that is right up against the sidewalk and the parking lot out there. It's roughly about 94 feet. You can see that 94'8" in length. And it varies in height. And due to the top of the wall will be consistent, but as we're working with the natural grades out there and It'll start out at about 4 foot or a little over 4 foot, and then it ramps up, I want to say, because of the topography of the natural land. Up against that space is where we're housing some of the mechanical for this pool area, as well as a spa. That's about 10 feet front to back. And then we get into the pool area itself. This whole area will have the earth roof over the top of it, sloping at a 2 and 12 pitch. So down by the river, or down at the lower side of this plan, is the river side. That'll be the high point, and then it's sloping back towards the parking lot at the 212 pitch. We have taken into consideration the roof load, the dead load, the live load, and the load of our about 12 to 18 inches of soil. The dash lines that you see here are basically representing the beams in the ceiling that we're going to are in the roof to carry this load. So yes, we have been working with a structural engineer to figure out how to do that, still get the large expansive openings to the west or to the river, and try to minimize the columns or minimize the supports, but still be able to carry that weight. The new pool itself in this diagram represents about 2,000 square foot of pool. It's roughly about 5 feet in depth. I know that was another question, and we are staying out of the natural different levels below here. So we're only going down about 5 feet at this level with that pool. Again, the structural and the foundation system will be sufficient enough to carry this load, but also designed to stay out of the water table or those different flows that we have below. The next diagram down actually is a pretty good one. If you can go to that one, Doug, number 13 there. So this is a little bit of a diagram of how that will be built up. You have the structural components, you have the insulation, the waterproofing membrane, and then you get into a drainage level, because this will be irrigated, and we got a little picture there of the proposed irrigation, so that we get growth, or we get some green on top of this roof. It'll also have we'll have staggered in there stability, so that the soil doesn't just all slope from high to low, but at about 4 foot intervals we'll have a built up concrete stem walls to keep our soil, keep our plantings in place. Down at the bottom of this, you can see here within our 12 to 18 inches, these are the different kinds of materials or landscape plantings that we can get to grow within that soil depth. So I think that's about it right now. I'm sure people will have some questions about this, but I found this picture. I think this is a pretty good representation of what we're envisioning that roof to look like. And then down along the face there, where you see those columns, that would be roughly where that stone wall would occur. And as Gretchen was saying, kind of the impression of a stone retaining wall. Obviously not quite as tall as this image here. Again, it goes back to 4 feet up to almost 6 feet, depending on where you are and where you're looking at it. So I think that's it, Doug. If you want to wrap up now, landscaping.
And I did just want to make a brief comment about the for lack of for shorter term alternative compliance regarding this structure, and that is, it's not that we didn't have the ability to exactly meet the code that's associated with the structure. The goal is to create something that's a little bit unique, a little bit of an alternative to how things might traditionally be done. While the roof itself doesn't have projections on it like dormers to break up the mass, it's going to have a variety of different plant materials, different textures, different colors. So the point is that even though we're not in strict compliance with some of the code requirements, this alternative we think meets the intent of the code, and actually goes beyond it to create something that's a little bit more unique in Glenwood Springs. So it's meant to be something that goes beyond it, and it's not just a substitute for areas of the code that we couldn't meet. So sorry, that was a lengthy explanation, but just wanted to get that across. Finally, these are just some illustrations I know you've seen in your packets, the landscape plans that have been put together. The focus of the landscape plan has really been in this area where the new hot springs are. I'll go on to some of the additional work that we have proposed for the bank areas that are just below the hot springs. But this was the landscape plan associated with the new pools, the new indoor pool, the new entry building, and all of the landscape associated with that. This is again a little bit closer so you can just see it. I know you can probably see it easier in your packets, but again, trying to get tree and shrub materials, and then ultimately, a good list of perennials and grasses and those types of things as well that will add color and variety to the landscape here. We've also put together an illustration that just shows a little bit of additional work that we'd like to do above the high water mark, but in that 35-foot setback area to provide some additional plant materials associated with riverbank restoration. These are kind of the illustrations of the existing riverbank as it exists now. So again, it's trying to enhance that and make it an amenity to the project along the river. And kind of as a discussion point, there's a French drain that'll be put in below these pools. So if mineral pool water, salt water splashes out, be captured in the French drain before it drains down to the river. So there's the opportunity there to make sure that not only is it water quality related, but it also doesn't kill the plant materials that we're putting in below the pools. So there's a little bit of detail associated with that. Then this is just kind of a next step slide, but I know there were some questions from the group. I'm trying to see which ones were and were not answered. Looks like Steve talked about the old entry building and what was going to be in that. We talked a bit about the east wall of the covered pool. Gretchen talked a bit about the traffic and the provisions that were in place from the Caverns Village project and the improvements. Also associated with the new walkway that will be over on the Two Rivers side that Steve will contribute to. Paula had some cost discussions related to the lift station. And Steve, do you think you'd be able to describe just kind of how you're moving forward with that with the city?
Yep. Yeah, let me add on to several of the questions. The lift station was actually a separate process. This was done, I think we worked with city staff and we're sharing the cost of the lift station, but it's not part of this application. We already have entered into an agreement with the city to, this is a 50-year-old lift station that needs to be replaced. It services not only our building, but the CQG building next door. It services CDOT, and it just needed to be replaced. So we came to the agreement with the city to replace the lift station, update it, and to upgrade it for a future expansion. And we're sharing that cost with the city. So we'll start construction on that probably in the next 2 to 3 months. As far as the Caverns Village and the expansion and the road improvements, we've been working directly with Terry Parch on this. And so this product will actually be expanding a much larger walkway that goes along Centennial to Devereaux Road. So there'll be on the north side of the road, there will be a new sidewalk that will go along the CDOT lot and will connect this property with, and then there'll be a crosswalk that will go over to Two Rivers Park. Then we had an agreement with the city to share in the cost of the pathway that's going to be in Two Rivers Park along the bank. We had some initial estimates and somewhere to $400,000 to $500,000 range, but the way costs are going these days, it may be more than that. But we're committed to $300,000 that cost to upgrade the pathway in Two Rivers Park. We'll also be doing some enhancements at the intersection of Devereaux and 6 and 24, working with CDOT and Terry on those. And that's some pedestrian islands and different things that help pedestrian traffic at Highway 6 and 24. The travertine layer, we've modeled the travertine layer throughout the whole site. There's been, I would say 15 different drill holes that were drilled down to the travertine. So we know the travertine and where it's at. So this is all planned around the travertine. And so we're well aware of staying out of the travertine. So I think those are the only questions that I still had on my list, but I'm certainly willing to take more questions.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? I see. Shelley, go ahead.
Thanks. Steve, can I, real quick, just to get a little more clarity on the pedestrian access? So you said there will be some improvements up by 6 and 24. Will there actually be improved sidewalk and walking along Devereaux all the way to Centennial and into the project, or will they be using that pedestrian pathway that goes into Two Rivers Park and cutting through there? I just want to make sure I'm clear on that.
So currently, the way that the project is planned, as we work with the city on the best route, is they will come along the walkway that already exists next to the Land Rover site. They will come to the caverns. They'll cross the existing park or pathway, existing crosswalk. They'll go across the pedestrian bridge. And then once, right now we've just committed to the dollars. We haven't committed to, we have to wait till it's funded by the city as far as building the pathway that will go along Devereaux. And then once you get to the end of where the Two Rivers Park entrance is, there will be a crosswalk there that will go to the north side of Centennial, and then the walkway will go all the way down Centennial into this operation. And then if you actually look at this master plan, you can see that there's a walkway that goes adjacent to the Caverns Village project, and then that goes along the back of the property, and eventually that can tie to the Lova Trail. There's a bridge design, so all those easements are in place where that can be, all this can be tied into future development of the Lova Trail and other ways to access the property.
Okay, great. I think that'll help. We're getting there for having a good continuous access to this area. So that's great. Thanks.
Charlie and then Paula.
Yeah, thanks. I want to go back to the east wall of the pool building, and I think I'm fairly comfortable with it, but I'm still trying to understand it. I thought Gretchen indicated it was going to be a concrete wall. That was one of my concerns. And Doug, you seemed to indicate it was going to be, or Mike, maybe it was, this is going to be a rock wall. So can you give me some idea what that's going to look like? That's what my question was earlier.
Yeah, this is Mike Foster. So on the backside right now, there'll be a concrete foundation wall, and then facing that concrete foundation wall with stone veneer, similar to what's on the existing entry building today. Charlie, is what we're proposing on that east wall. And okay. Right now it's a pretty flat application. And actually, what I've been thinking and have been playing with is to create some jumpers in that, so that it gives it a little bit of variation, a little bit of shadow line as we create that wall of veneer, and not just have it be in a single plane, but give it some depth, give it some articulation as it moves down that path.
I think that does answer my question about it. And then, yeah, I think you can do to break it up a little bit. I think that'd be nice. But and then Steve, you mentioned that the restaurant for right now is going to be just for the patrons of the property, but I noticed in the materials that the hotel is not going to have a restaurant. I'm assuming, or at least I assume when I read the materials, that the hotel guests could come over and use this restaurant. Is that the intent?
Charlie, I don't know if we should be talking or considering the uses of a potential future application, or if that's is that relevant to your approval of, or your decision whether to approve this project?
Just trying to understand the use of the restaurant.
Well,
Okay.
maybe you should go into the development business, Charlie. This is not the kind of decisions that council makes with regards to this project.
Thank you, Mr. Hershey. Appreciate it.
Well, then maybe you should read the charter.
Okay. Let's let the applicant answer the question.
So Charlie, the restaurant, the restaurant would potentially could be very popular, being on the river, overlooking the river. It's a nice location. We really want the parking lot to be reserved more for our guests and not we haven't planned to have additional parking for outside guests for the restaurant. So at this time, it won't be open for people outside of the facility.
All right,
Mainly based on
Steve,
parking.
you may not be there. Yeah, that was my other question. I guess I had for you, Steve. I read in or maybe not you or somebody in your team, but I read in there that if the parking gets to be a certain level, and it's full, you're going to cut off the people. Have you given any thought about trying to get people to this facility from the hotels by a shuttle system or anything like that, which might alleviate some of the traffic in and out of this area?
So Charlie, the design is really based on the number of parking spaces is when our facility is full. So even now we will have days, and this is pre-COVID, where we will turn people away because once the parking lot's full, we feel our facilities at its maximum, and it degrades the experience, and we don't want to degrade the experience. So we have a fixed number of parking spaces we don't want to exceed because it will make for a lesser experience in our facility. So we do get a fairly large number of people that walk here. As we do the pedestrian improvements, that will probably improve.
Okay. All right, I think that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. I just want to remind everybody, this is a major architectural review. So I think, and Charlie, not to bash it, but like questions about specific walls or future development plans or detailed construction questions, we do have building inspectors for that. So if we could kind of keep the questions a little bit more high level to things that we think are architecturally very problematic to our interpretation of the code, that I think that would help move things along. Paula.
Well, I'm just not sure about my question now, but I'm going to go
ahead. Sorry. I love shutting questions down.
Still back to the pool and the weight and that type of stuff. Are you limiting? Are you allowing people up on this roof when it's grass covered? I mean, I just consider that another weight factor, and I was wondering what you guys are thinking.
No, okay. we're not allowing the general public up there. There'll be some access up there just for general maintenance, but the general public will not be allowed on the roof itself.
And that'll be signage or something that they'll be aware of. Okay.
That great. And just purely access. There just won't be a good access point for that, so it'll be pretty evident that it's for maintenance only.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe goats, Paula.
Goats. That's a good idea. Except you'll lose all those plants you put in there. At least the shrubbery.
Did you say goatus? Okay, just checking. Ingrid.
So I just want to say thank you so much for bringing this to us, that I see, there's a really strong utilization of the area. Considering how busy it is, I think having more pools and accommodating more people is great. I see continuity between the old and this potential new. So thank you for all that. And we do know that this is subject to change, that ultimately you're just getting a preliminary approval to move forward. And we look forward to seeing what you bring to us then as well. So thank you.
All right. Are there any more questions for the applicant or staff? All right. As Gretchen indicated and reminded me of, because I've forgotten on the first one, we're going to take public comment. We're going to close public comments, and then we will ask for a continuance, get a second, hopefully continue it to the next meeting, and move on to the next item. So with that in mind, is there anybody from the public who would like to give a 3-minute comment? Well, that's fantastic. Okay,
Mayor, I would move to continue this item to the December 17th agenda item.
I will now close public comment, and I will accept Tony's motion. Is there a second?
I'll
And
second.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, it's been moved by Tony, seconded by Shelley. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Opposed? Seeing and hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Stephen, Jeannie, and Doug, and just everybody else who presented this evening. Looks like an interesting project, and we'll have comments and hopefully a vote when we come back in 2 weeks. All right, next item. Get to
Mayor,
where it is.
Do we need a second motion on the second action, or does our one motion cover them both? I guess that's a question for Carl.
I interpreted it as covering the entire application and all the pieces.
Tony, was that your intent?
Yes, it was my intent. Thank you.
That's wonderful. That's amazing how that worked out. Does anybody need a 5-minute break? Usually we take a break about this time. All right, let's reconvene back here in 5 minutes at 8:35. Thanks, everybody. All right, is everybody back and ready to go? 5 minutes went a little quick, so give us a couple more. Let's see. Where are we at? Are we only on the third item of the regular agenda? I think that's the case. Can people hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
There's only 5, isn't there? Or do you have a longer agenda?
We're on 14, I think.
Yes, I think we're right.
Really hopeful he doesn't, Paula.
I didn't have my earphones plugged in. I was like, why is no one talking to me? Like my earphones weren't plugged in. All right, we are right on time. Ordinance number 28. This is the ordinance of the City Council of Glenwood Springs appropriating funds for fiscal year 2021. Is this Deborah?
Yes, it is. Thank you. This is just appropriating the funds that are in the 2021 budget. It gives us legal authority to spend those funds. We do it every year. We still come back to council for large project approvals, though. But that is my presentation.
And my only follow-up would be is that the reason it is a single reading is that that's how it is laid out to be done in the charter. So,
Charlie, go ahead.
I would move for the approval of ordinance number 28, series of 2020. Ordinance the City Council, City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, appropriating funds for fiscal year 2021.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved. It's an ordinance. Do we need to take public comment, Carl, on this? Okay, let's do that then. Anybody in the audience like
Sorry
to?
about that.
It's okay. Anybody in the audience like to speak on this topic? Nope. Okay. Shelley, do you have a question?
No, I have just a comment before we vote on it.
Sure, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think staff really worked hard and put together a good budget for 2021. It's reduced just about to 2019 levels based on the year that we've had in 2020. And as I approve this, I guess I'm thinking that going forward into 2021, we as council and staff, as things adjust throughout the year, if revenues are higher than expected, lower than expected, I think we always have the ability to go back and adjust our budget and our spending as we go forward. So I'm kind of approving that with that thought in mind this year, just not knowing really what to expect for 2021.
All right.
I would agree. Yes, we will continue to watch revenues and expenses and make adjustments as we need to as COVID continues.
Which will be a great segue into the next item. But until then, we've had a motion by Charlotte, second by Shelley. Any further comments or questions?
Can we do it by roll, Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor, so Catherine
Yeah.
has something to do?
I would hate for Catherine to sit here and not have anything to do all evening. Catherine, let's take roll.
Hope,
Yes.
Godus,
Yes.
Hershey,
Oui, madame. Yes.
Step,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Wusso,
Yes.
Willman.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Right. Item number 15. This is the COVID-19 update. This is
And
why
I
we
was
still
going
have.
to start this, Mr. Mayor, with an informational update on our campaign and then hand it over to Carl. So, as you all know, we have joined the United to Stop the Spread effort. It is a grassroots effort to reduce our COVID-19 spread. It was initiated by our business community and is being led by our chamber in partnership with the Carbondale and Western Garfield County chambers. The towns of Silk, Newcastle, and Carbondale are also supporting the effort, along with Garfield County Public Health. So far, 24 businesses and organizations have signed up to be part of the effort. The Chamber will officially ask Garfield County, I think next week, to join as a sponsor. We have committed financial support to this effort as well as staff support to help coordinate. The public rollout was on November 24th, and I think many of you joined us. Thank you. All information in this campaign is created in both English and Spanish. The effort is focusing on having residents of Garfield County talk to each other about staying safe and keeping our businesses open by reducing the spread of COVID-19 in our communities. The initiative has consisted of radio ads, videos, banners, and flyers. We're even thinking about what it might look like and how much it might cost to put in United to stop the spread, like flags over the Grand Avenue Bridge and the little empty arms. So we'll bring back more on that. We've never used those, but we think it is an interesting opportunity. We're very thankful that our business community and chambers have gotten together to jumpstart this effort and for all the hard work done by PR Studios. We are really hoping against hope. It helps make a difference. Do you guys have any questions on the campaign itself? We kind of jump-started it with your approval and we didn't really ever fully explain what it was.
Go ahead, Paul.
Deborah, I've only seen one or two videos, but I just had a comment to me that the focus of Stop the Spread seems to be stop the spread to lessen the economic impact of the virus spreading. And was there intent also to kind of get the messaging of keep people safe, et cetera, other aspects of that?
I do believe that is definitely an important component of it. I think we started with, because it was really started by the business community, and that was a message that everyone could get behind, regardless of political party or ideology, that we have to keep our businesses open. So I think that was the easiest path to start down. And it does both things. But I think, we've always wanted to have the medical community there as well, which I believe we did have on the rollout. So I would say it's definitely both. We're just trying to speak in the language that the majority of people in Garfield County will respond to.
Okay, that's kind of what my answer was, but thank you.
Any other questions for Deborah? All right, Mr. Hanlon, you're on.
Turning the hard part over to Carl.
Now, these are tough meetings to do. This is really just an update, and I wanted to run through. I know there has been some deep concern in the community because information is being provided by the Board of County Commissioners, which is inconsistent with and perhaps not as clear as it possibly could have been regarding where we are at as a county from the state standpoint. And so both Deborah and I reached out in our, kind of various paths. I reached out to the Attorney General's office. She reached out to CDPHE for clarification on the question. In your packet, you have an email from Chief of Staff at CDPHE being abundantly clear as to what the status is, that those variances for Iron Mountain Hot Springs, Glenwood Hot Springs, and Hanging Lake remain in place, but that the sector-wide variances, the ones which would have affected restaurants and the number of persons, the percentages for restaurants and retail, that those are no longer in effect from the state standpoint. I think there has been a little bit, the confusion has been created because I hear repeatedly the county commissioners talk about the variances. And I think that leads to some confusion because, the state has been very clear as to where we're at on that. For us, that creates some real problems because, of course, our business community is trying to do the right thing and adhere to the right set of rules. And there is confusion as to which set they should be relying on. And I would suggests that like what happened to a business in Weld County is currently under a red restriction from the state. Weld County has said they're not going to enforce that. They told this business owner to go ahead and operate, and the state showed up and took their liquor license and shut them down. And so I have been very concerned about our business community and our citizens having the right information. The other thing that's going on is that we are continuing to get a number of complaints regarding various businesses in our community. We, in conjunction with the police department, are investigating those. We will continue to do so. If we find it necessary to, we will, if the citizen complain, and these are being complaint driven by citizens in our community. This is not us going out there and looking for anything. We will take such actions as we can underneath the municipal code. Primarily, that is limited to show cause hearings on liquor licenses. And we do have some for establishments that don't have, that may be a problem, that don't have liquor licenses. Every business in town is licensed with a city business license. So we can also take a look at that. It's something we don't want to do, obviously. So those are the tools that are really available to us. And I will tell you that we don't currently have what I would view as the authority to immediately go in and like just shut somebody down for a violation. I will tell you that we are, with the recently passed SB 1 in the special session, there seems to be an implication that local jurisdictions now have authority to enforce the executive orders, and that's implied in the new legislation, because if your county is non-compliant but you are compliant, and I'm sorry, Councilor Hershey, do I need to stop so that you can? Okay, I just couldn't tell. It looked like you were taking an important call. So SB 1 seems to indicate that the local jurisdiction can take actions to enforce those executive orders and state statutes related to COVID if you are functioning in a world where your county is non-compliant. I think that is really more directed at if your county is in level red than an orange, like we are now. And that relates also to whether or not funding will be provided to your county or to your municipality underneath that legislation. That was just adopted in the last couple of days, so still working through what that means. And obviously the municipal attorneys in the state are having a conversation about that as well. So I think really what we wanted to do tonight was just share that we feel like we now have clarity from the state as to where we're at. We feel it's important that our business community have that clarity, because I don't want them being put at risk, whether it's, the possibility of state enforcement on their, their restaurant license, on their liquor license, whether it is facing exposure because their insurance company doesn't want to cover them anymore because they aren't abiding by the regulations when a claim is made against them, to workers' comp potential issues. All of those things, I think, are things that our business community needs to be aware that they need to make their own decisions about, and they need to talk to those folks about, because I don't want them to get caught in this in-between land. So that was really the purpose of the update tonight. At this point, I think some very, very high percentage of our businesses in town are trying very hard to do the right thing, and we are trying to help them in any way we possibly can. And the work downtown and the work with our restaurants, we're all trying to do that. And so I don't want them to get, like I said, caught in this no man's land because they're not being provided good and clear information. And so that was really the purpose of tonight's update from my standpoint, was to try to help them do that. I know there was an article in the paper, and it doesn't help when they just say we're in no man's land. I think we have clarity as to what the rules are that we need to be abiding by. The state has made that very clear. And I think, the case in Weld County makes it very clear that you can be exposed and at risk for the state taking action if you're not abiding by the regulations that they have adopted for the county. I don't want to make this, this has nothing to do with politics. It just has to do with the realities of the situation that a business may face or that we face as a municipality in our role. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. And I appreciate you taking the time to listen.
Ingrid.
So the Mesa County 5-star program, it's
Mhm.
been a hot button conversation that's come up. I'm curious if one, how the state is looking at that, because my understanding is that those businesses, because of certain precautionary or I think you're familiar with it, and I think most of the people here are as well. How are they looking at it? And can we do something similar to that?
Yeah, and I think I'm going to have Deborah answer most of that. I am familiar with it. I do think that if there is significant local support for a program like that, the state is supportive. But I don't know, and Deborah, you may know if they'll come in and set one up.
They are currently taking public comment on it until tomorrow. So I think they're still trying to fine tune what they're willing to do or not do. Mesa County was a pilot program. I know Eagle County has expressed a lot of interest in it, as have other communities and counties around us. I know the mayor has expressed a lot of interest in it. I don't think you can certainly kind of tell us the response you've gotten back, Mayor Godis, but I think we are definitely interested in pursuing it. You do need a public health department to be able to implement it should the state open it up.
And have you reached out to our public health, Garfield County Public Health? Have you reached out to our commissioners, and what's been the response from them?
I'm going to let the mayor respond to that because he is the one that reached out.
Okay.
Yeah, and the Mesa County, I think it is a good program. And just let me take a step back. If the people in the public aren't familiar with the 5-star program that Mesa County is doing, they've been doing it since I believe July. And what this pilot program that they have been doing is, instead of looking at businesses and saying which ones aren't strictly complying with the law, and we're going to send out code enforcement and police and smack them on the wrist, this is more of a carrot approach, and where they're saying, listen, if we go to different levels of the dial, we will be able to keep those businesses that are above reproach. So, for example, I think in Mesa County, last time I checked, there's like 120 different businesses, and it's just not bars and restaurants. It's barbers and personal services, CPAs. It's the whole gambit of anytime there's any personal interaction. And so what their goal is having these businesses, every business in Garfield County has to submit a COVID plan. And it's just an online fill in the blanks. Yes, we attest we're doing this stuff, but there's not really going above and beyond, and there's no follow-up and check-in that people are. And there's no consequences if they're not, because they're not enforcing it. But in Mesa County, that was a whole part of this 5-star program where these businesses, it's like a good housekeeping seal of approval. And what these businesses get to do, if Mesa County back in July was going to go from at the time, yellow to orange, which, as we have talked about, delineate going from 50% to 25% capacity, which is a huge deal. Those businesses that have been 5-star accredited would get to maintain their 50%. And what we've actually seen in Mesa County is the Mesa County has, we've all heard about their hospitalization really crisis, and they are firmly in the red. Their numbers, and the state has put them in the red. Actually, I believe they went to the red in conjunction with the state, because they have this 5-star program. So these programs have been able to, these businesses have been able to keep at 50% capacity, even in the red. Now, again, public comment closes tomorrow afternoon, so I don't know what that ends up being, but in theory, a county can be put in the red, but still have a good chunk of their businesses that are doing stuff at such a high level, and there's accountability, that you could still keep that 50% variance and still be in line with the state without going rogue or without just deciding to pull a Weld County. And so I just want to give that background. And so, to your question, Ingrid, yes, I became aware of the program about 3 weeks ago, and I emailed the county commissioners and asked them what their level of interest was. Didn't hear back. I did get an email from Public Health Director Yvonne Long saying that something they've looked at, but it's a capacity issue. And I then a couple nights ago said, but guys, we really do need to do this. Like, this is the one thing that we can do to help our businesses. It's not necessarily, I think, yes, it will help with the COVID pandemic, but really this is an economic development, an economic survival, not development, it's an economic survival tool for our community. And the response I got was, Glenwood can do what we want to do, but we're not interested. We're at capacity. And I can attest that public health is at capacity with Garfield County. I have some experience knowing how much capacity they are at. So I do appreciate that. But at the same time, we do not, as Deborah said, have a 5-star or have a public health department. We cannot create a new department, a new division of the city out of thin air. So it's very, very difficult for us to take this on. So that's where we are. I don't know how we necessarily do this without the participation, the active and enthusiastic participation of the county.
So Deborah, really quickly, you mentioned that Eagle County is very receptive to the program, and obviously they have a public health nurse. Is that something that we could contract with them? I mean, is there a dialogue that could ensue?
I am definitely talking to Eagle County about it. Okay. And I went ahead and put in the public comment section of the public comment they're taking on the 5-star program at the advice of the governor's office, like that question, like, can we work with another health department? We're a small city. And, I haven't heard back yet, but the governor's office promised to flag it and then make sure it got answered. So I think my response is I'm trying in multiple venues. And as soon as I know, I will let you guys know. Okay. And it wouldn't be free. I mean, this would be something, if we can figure out, we would have to pay for to participate because we are not in Eagle County.
Yeah. So my last is more of a comment than a question. And that is just to say that I think we need to take a proactive approach to keeping our businesses opened, to keeping people safe. And, whatever we need to do as the city of Glenwood, I'm behind it. And I really want to see that. I think this is the most viable route. So.
Thank you. And we will continue to pursue it. And you guys have been extraordinarily supportive of every good, crazy, bad potential idea we've had to try to support our businesses. And we really thank you for that. I mean, you've taken some pretty big risks on us, and I'm really hoping they help.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And this is stuff that we've been kicking around since the start of this deal, and it's not these things like 5-star programs and Orange Plus, which Pitkin County is in. It's not brand new stuff. I mean, Tony talked to me about the 5-star program a couple of weeks ago. So it's stuff that I think there's a general level of familiarity with. It's just pushing the right buttons. Charlie, you're up, and then Shelley.
So, first of all, Deborah and Carl and staff and Jonathan, thank you for continuing to take the lead on this stuff. I appreciate it. And I know the citizens, I don't know if they quite understand what we're doing, but I think they would appreciate it if they did. And hopefully business people in the community understand that we fully support them in their efforts to stay open and stay economically viable. I am concerned that we're going to go into red next week. And if we do, that could be the death knell for several restaurants and or businesses downtown, particularly given the fact that this is the high for retail, this is the high retail season. And so I guess what I'd ask Carl, and maybe, I don't know if we can do this, can we come up with some kind of a plan to contract with a nurse or something like that. It's not creating a full department, but something that would allow us to do this, because we're going to have to move. If we go to red, we have to do something. We got to do it quickly, because we're December 3rd. We're 3 weeks from Christmas, and shopping season is right there. And these businesses need that income to make it through the next till hopefully in April when things get better.
Yeah, no, and I will tell you, Charlie, that I think for Deborah and I, this is our highest priority right now, is to try to figure out how to make this work. And and I appreciate that Garfield County Public Health is at capacity, and I think we're in for a rough couple of weeks. I agree with you on that. And I think trying to find any way that we can to create some opportunities for these businesses, especially the restaurants, is super critical. What I think and the reason I want to work so hard on that is what I think the Weld County approach, while has garners a lot of kind of political whatever for them, whatever they're calling themselves, going rogue or whatever. The reality is that the business community continues to suffer in that situation, as is evidenced by people losing their liquor licenses when they're going along with their county commissioners, and we can't put our businesses in that place. We have to find a way to actually legitimately protect them underneath the rules that we have to work with. So we're going to do everything we can to make that happen for our community.
Is there? Again, I'm just throwing ideas, and I appreciate everything you're doing. But
yeah, no, and I think that we can't create a full-blown health department, but I do think that we can potentially work with Eagle. I think there are some real opportunities there. I'm doing what I can now that the special session is kind of wrapping up, to reach out to leadership down in Denver and see, and the governor to see what we can do as far as finding some flexibility here, because we are in such a unique situation potentially. So we're going to do everything we can. I don't have a solution off the top of my head that I can tell you tonight is going to work, but we're going to find one.
If we go red, I assume all the municipalities are the same shape we are. Could we get together with them and provide, through a combination of economic resources and money, to the county to get that extra person they might need to run this program?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can certainly try, and we can certainly work on it. And I know Deborah's talking to the other managers, and I'm talking to the other attorneys, and we'll, Glenwood is by far the most proactive of those, the communities right now. So I think we have to kind of find the solutions and then lead everybody else.
Thank you again. I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thanks, Charlie. Shelley, then Paula.
I won't take too much time because basically similar questions to what Charlie has. I'm also really concerned that we're going to go get bumped to red next week. It seems like most of our metrics are there already. And the map, the state map shows that we're orange, but we're in the mitigation range. So I guess I have a question for you, Carl. Is there anything that we need to do right now to assist our businesses so that they can work to compliance, so they are eligible for state assistance as that comes up?
I think one of the things that I'm going to work with Deborah and Hannah on this, I think, and Jen and whoever's always on that communications team. Nothing personal, but I was reading SB1 while you guys were doing some of your other work tonight, so that I could try to speed reading, trying to get up to speed. I think we need to do an information push on. So SB1 only applies if you were at red before December 10. So, but I do think that we need to get information out about, the definition of what is a complying business. I mean, the numbers aren't huge. I'll be really honest. The economic assistance isn't huge, but at least it's something, right? And so if we find ourselves in that place, I want to make sure as many of our businesses qualify, and frankly, we as a community qualify to be able to administer those funds. So I think part of that is getting an information push out, hopefully tomorrow, to make sure people are queued up so that they know they're getting their ducks in a row now, just in case. It's nothing too onerous that they need to do, but it's just about thinking about being in compliance and how you're operating in those things. And I think that's the first step that we can do to try to help them.
Okay, I think that would be great. And then otherwise, I fully support the work on the pursuing the 5-star program. I think that would be great. And again, to Deborah and staff and everyone, thank you so much for all the creative work you guys have been doing. Jen working to keep businesses open and working on the outdoor dining, all of that. I think it's great. So thanks.
Thanks, Shelley. Follow-up questions.
So Shelley kind of asked my question, but it kind of led to another one. So is there a way we can help these businesses show they've been complying? I mean, how obviously that worker at the county level to do the 5-star program was going around saying, yes, you're complying. How do we kind of help businesses do that so that they can take advantage of any assistance?
I wish I had a perfect answer for you right now, Paula, but I'm literally, catching up with the legislation as we're talking right now.
I just didn't know if we could go to their knock on doors.
There's not a clean roadmap right now.
Okay.
I think being in compliance currently with current regulations, which is why I started this by talking about making sure we understand where we're at on the dial, making sure, we as a community and particularly as a business community, and this applies to my own offices as well, understanding that the information we need to be focused on, which is the information that the state is providing as to what variances are in place and what aren't, and just being really clear about that. I think that's a good starting point, and then we will push out information about SB1 as we can put it together tomorrow.
So are we saying we are going to do some kind of publicity campaign saying you should be at 25% capacity?
I don't know. I don't know exactly. I think the stop. I'm hoping that the paper picks this up and just reports here's where we're at and here's what the regulations are. This is what CDPHE is saying. I don't know that I'm as much worried about that as I am about getting out the compliance piece of queuing people up so that they could qualify for help underneath the economic help underneath SB1, right? I think that's, to me, that's probably the more critical. Frankly, I think a lot of our businesses know what's going on, and the pressure that is on them regarding the 25 versus 50% is as much, if you talk to some of the business owners, it's because their insurance companies are telling them they need to be in compliance with what the state regs are, or else they're not going to provide coverage if a claim is made against them. I mean, that's a big risk for a business. And so I'm, I know that there are, the business community is talking.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Other questions? All right. I'm inclined to open this up for public comment. I'd like to hear what some of the folks in the audience would have to say. Charlie, unmuted yourself.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, Jonathan. I think that there are a number of members of our public and business that are out there, and I think we need to hear what they think we can do to help them, or other comments. We need to be receptive to that.
Absolutely. All right, we'll open public comment. I see 3 hands up. I don't see anybody calling in, so I won't give my monologue on that. But Brittany Rippey, you are allowed to talk. Please unmute yourself, bottom left-hand corner. Hi, Brittany.
Hi, council members. You gotta turn that off. Hang on 1 second.
Only one audio device allowed in the room.
Yeah, of course. Better now?
Much, a little better. Still a little echoey, but good enough.
Okay. No, I think it's pretty clear. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to turn this off. As far as right, at the state level, we have gone to orange. So can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So that means that all of the variances change and the site-specific variances will remain. Those are the Glenwood Springs Hot Springs, the Iron Mountain Hot Springs, and Hanging Lake. I'm trying to fully understand this because those are the places. I mean, we just had a big presentation of expansion for that business. So these are places where their capacity could be quite large. And for some reason, they do not have to abide by the restrictions that the rest of us have to. I'm trying to understand this. When we sit here and we say that we're concerned mostly with the spreading of this and controlling it, small business wants consistency and fairness across the board. And we don't really feel like people are fighting for us. You guys can put up more banners and flags, and you can use that same verbiage that we've been using for the last number of months, but that's not going to help your small businesses get through this. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Brittany. All right. Sharon, if you'll give your name and your local address, that would be great. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name's Sharon Wright, and I own Narcissus Hair Salon. I'm at 726 Grand. What else did you need?
Just keep your comments to 3 minutes, and we'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this.
Okay, I'm still really confused on this 25% capacity also. I don't know how they figure it, and I haven't been able to find anything that really gives me real specifics on how we even figure that out. What happens when we go to red? Is it going to go down to the 25%, or are they going to shut us down? I need to know that. The SB1 thing that he was talking about, I don't think it's going to be enough to really help much of anybody. So those are my concerns. So can you answer any of that? That's where I'm at.
And usually we don't answer questions on public comment, Sharon, but I will say that we are not public health. That is a great question for the Garfield County Public Health, specifically Zach Sutherland answers usually those questions. So I would refer those questions to the public health agency that oversees all of Garfield County.
Okay. So basically my thing is, don't let them shut us down, please. And that's all I got to say.
Thanks, Sharon.
Okay.
All right. Christian Henny. Christian Henny.
Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay, Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you for taking a few minutes to listen to me. I just want to thank you for your support of trying to find a way to make the 5-star program happen. I think it's critical to support our community, our businesses, our residents by keeping businesses open and trying to help weave our way through this quagmire of regulations and what are we supposed to be operating under versus where could we, the Weld County thing scares me to death with, the state coming in and pulling people's licenses. So any path forward on the 5-star, I applaud you for your efforts. Deborah, Carl, everyone, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Christian. All right. Ricky. Bottom left. Unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can, you bet.
I was a little blown away from what I heard from Carl, then continuing to get more flags and more messaging out there. I think everybody has the point. Moving my business to 25% it's a shutdown, I heard that Deborah was saying helping out the small businesses. I haven't really gotten much help. I got a PPP loan. I don't have any outdoor seating. We haven't had any kind of special grants. I know the state is not taxing us. I was seeing if maybe the city would take city taxes away to help us out, because we're not making any money here in the city that we're paying taxes in. for you guys not to be able to answer these questions right now, it's disturbing too, because we have so many questions. I mean, our livelihood's at stake when all these other businesses, I mean, I love Steve Beckley and everything that they're doing to this city. You know, it's beautiful, but at the same time, it's not fair. It's not fair. None of this sounds fair to me. I'm extremely disappointed, you know? Yeah, I don't have much more to say. Thanks.
Thanks, Ricky. Sharon, you've already given public comment. I see you've raised your hand back up a couple times. We only allow public comment to happen one time, so I apologize. I'm sure we'll be talking about this in the future. Or if you have other comments, please email us as well. Is there anybody else from the public? There's a lot of people out there that don't have comments. That's okay, I guess. All right, we'll bring it back to council for further discussion, comments, opinions, thoughts.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, I wanted to say on the request for information, if you go to covid19.colorado.gov /COVID-19 dial, it gives you a very clear list of the various colors on the dial and what is permitted, and links to how you calculate those things. So I think that's an important piece of information. I also think it's important to understand that we aren't setting these regulations. The state is. So, you know, we're talking about how do we respond to those. You know, this isn't for the city, it's not sort of an opt-in if you feel like it. We don't have the authority to override the state on this, and neither does the county, frankly. So that's, you know, we're trying to deal with the cards that we have been dealt. And that's why we're talking about trying to get this 5-star program started, why we've been doing the work that we have been doing. So I just want to be really clear on that. This is not the city of Glenwood Springs making any decisions on what the regulations are or what the rules are. This is happening above us, and we're just here dealing with it.
Yeah, you know, I guess I want to say, Shelley, your hand's up. That's what I want to say.
Go ahead.
Nope. You got it.
I was just going to chime in because we're all concerned about getting bumped to red, and we're concerned about what that does to our businesses and our economic livelihood. But it's also, if we get bumped to red and where our numbers are now in the county, it's an indication of where we are health-wise. And we have an obligation to do our best to keep our public safe and healthy. We've just potentially more than doubled the number of deaths in Garfield County just in the last few days. So I think we need to be well aware that the most important thing we can do right now is all stay safe and follow the rules as far as mask wearing, washing hands, keeping separated, and keeping to our own households to get this spread under control. That's going to be the best way to get the businesses back open, get the rate of infection down, and keep our hospitals from being overloaded. So we can do the best we can as a city, and I'm all for pursuing the 5-star program to keep our businesses open. But the most important thing we can do right now is get that spread down.
Shelley, I agree with you 100%. I think, you know, there's also a lot of articles about just moving around, being out, going out and being about and doing stuff is also contributing to the spread. Not that people need to hole up, but being very conscious about how many trips you're taking to the grocery store or things like that, I think is important. And you know, like Ricky said, you know, the message is out there. I think people get the hand washing and all that, and we need to continue to reiterate that because that does make a difference. But you're right, Shelley. I mean, our test positive percentage has gone from, in the last 3 days, from 12.3 to 12.7 to 12.9. Our 2-week incident rate has hovered right around 1,000. which is so far, it almost exceeds the chart's limitations. I'm looking at the Garfield County .com public health / Garfield County COVID-19 cases. Our days with stable or declining hospitalization, last 3 days have gone from 6 to 5 to now 4. I don't necessarily know exactly what all the statistics mean, but I know there's a red by a lot of them. And it is a public health issue, obviously keeping people safe. And, you know, I guess if there's one or a number of directions I want staff to go, but the one I would want the takeaway to be is, and I want the public to know is, you know, Deborah's right. We have thrown money and resources and staff at this issue. A lot of it economic. We have given tens of thousands of dollars to maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars to various groups for direct assistance, for rent, for lift up, for food, basic life security to help people directly. We've also had $200,000. I think it ended up being a $400,000 once you combined all the partners grant early in this early in this pandemic in May, where people I think got on average of over 2,000 businesses, got on average of over $2,000 per business. And so, you know, the igloos, the branded blankets that were just given away. We have to say throw a lot of money at it, I think is probably accurate, and probably some of it we've just, you know, it's not going to make a lot of a difference, but we don't know enough. And I would say when it comes to the ability to keep good businesses who want to perform at a very high level operating at a percentage that means that they don't have to close, and whether we call it 5-star or Orange Plus Plus or whatever we call it, I think we need to throw a lot of money and resources at it. We need to contract with who we need to contract. We need to call Mesa and see if we can jump on with them. We need to call Pitkin County. We need to continue to ask the Garfield County. But I think that whatever we can do to allow businesses to thrive without contributing any more to the spread, we have to grab onto that with a big bear hug and do it and put all of our weight into that. And that's my opinion. And I think by the votes that this council has taken in the past, I think that's all of our opinions, regardless of what we think about the 5-star program or not. So I guess those are my comments. I'd love to hear some more.
I will just add ditto. I don't think I need to repeat what you and Shelley said. I think 100% support what you guys are saying and with the public message they have to get. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to echo what Shelley said. It's just common sense, and it's a scary situation. So anything you're not just protecting your fellow citizens and the people you live with, you're protecting your businesses, you're protecting your economy, you're protecting your kids going to school. If parents who complain, my kids can't get to school, but then take a trip to Las Vegas and get sick and then come back, it makes no sense to me. But if everyone could just pull together and just for a little while, the vaccine is on the horizon, I think we can do so well as a community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Tony. Councilor Davis.
Well, and I just reflect on what everybody said. And Jonathan, I appreciate the efforts that you've made in this and the time you've put in. Certainly, everybody, I often get asked the question of what we're going to do about that. And I don't think that, I wish we had the answers, and we don't. We really rely on the staff and Carl to keep focused and working on this. This is absolutely our #1 priority in this community. All of these businesses, not just the restaurants and hotels, but the retail, the downtown that is totally stocked up for Christmas. We absolutely have to figure out how to stay open right now and get through the holidays. It certainly is not the little mom and pop shops that are spreading COVID around this community. It's how do you control it makes no sense to close mom and pop and keep Walmart open, where they're allowing hundreds of people in there at a time and people stacking up at the register. So we greatly appreciate everything that's being done, and we're all just doing everything we could possibly do to keep things going. I just feel like that kid bent over, grabbing his ankles, waiting on to see when and how many swats I'm about to get. You know, we just can't take much more of this. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Ingrid.
Yes, I completely agree with everything that everyone has said. And the only thing I want to add is that one thing that we can all do is that we can shop locally. Rather than having boxes come to our front door, we can call those small business owners and they'll meet us out front and hand us everything contactless. I mean, we can support them in a way that sustains them through this. And I think that if we all combine that effort, we will see the fortitude that we can create as a community.
Thanks, Ingrid. To that point, I did hear Steve Davis say that any order over $500, he would personally deliver, personally himself, to everybody's front door. $500 at Hookers or more. Deborah.
Sorry, I was just looking at my phone to try to confirm. I think even, just so you guys know, even in red, retail stays open at 50% capacity. I think retail only, non-critical retail only closes if we get to purple. And purple is essentially, I think we looked at it the other day, like that is when you absolutely have no hospital capacity whatsoever. So there is a change in that red is not March and April. You know, March and April is kind of more purple. Not that we want to go, we don't want to be in red. We don't want to be in purple. We don't want to be in orange, but I just figured that would be good to clear up.
But just to clear up as well, red does mean without a specific industry-wide variance, which a 5-star program would give, restaurants are 0% indoor dining. They're not closed. They can still do takeout. They can still do delivery, but red without a industry-wide variance would mean 0% indoor dining, correct?
Brunt on this is absolutely on indoor dining. It is, yes, they are closed for indoor dining. The igloos are considered outdoor dining, but I mean, they're not enough. We can't put out enough igloos in the world to, you know, save restaurants if there's no indoor dining.
And red also means that we lose our site-specific variances, correct?
Maybe.
Maybe. That's a maybe? Okay.
That's a maybe.
That's good to know.
Yeah, I know El Paso County still has like the North Pole and the Great Wolf Lodge, and they're in red. And I don't believe they have a 5-star program, so they've been able to keep it. Paula?
I just want to express how grateful I am for everything that Deborah and Carl and you, Jonathan, are doing, and the staff. I think it's amazing. And I was going to follow up Ingrid's suggestion of not only shopping locally, but continue to order takeout and try these spots that people have set up, protective places to go dine, and just take care of each other. You know, I think that's where we're at right now. I wish we could all fix this. But all we can do is work together to get as far as we can. And I appreciate what's going on with our city staff.
Thanks, Paula. Ingrid.
Is it possible, I heard in public comment that there were people who felt like the information maybe wasn't quite as attainable. Is it possible for IT to add a temporary page on our website where we just really filter in some great resources, both state, county, just, you know, all types of info?
I believe we have that page.
I haven't been to the website lately.
I don't know if it has that in there, but yes, I'm sure we can ask Jenny, who keeps it up, to put that in if it's not in, and then we can ask Hannah to get that out.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, directions? I would just say, you know, for the public and for us, you know, this is an important conversation because we we don't get to be passive in this. We don't get to sit back and just kind of throw our hands up. And we can just bury our heads. But the reality is if we have to pick a side, and we have always. I think you're sharing your screen, Tony. I don't know if you mean to. Does it happen to? I don't know if I can. There we go.
I was trying to show you the COVID screen on the City of Glenwood Springs website. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I didn't mean to share it. I was trying to find it.
No worries. I think at the end of the day, this is a binary choice. We have always said we strive to follow the state CDPHE, state public health. Now, we have taken other steps. We have had adopted a mask order several months before the state. We have a downtown uniform indoor and outdoor mask order that is above the county and the state. But that's it. That's the only thing that we have done different, because we've always kind of stuck to the premise that we are not the experts, but the state is. And so we follow their recommendations by and large. And so I think, at least my opinion is we cannot deviate from that now. We really, it's a binary choice. Either we're going to follow the state law and the orders of the governor, the public health orders of CDPHE and the governor, or not. It's not about picking sides or siding with the county, or, this isn't a buffet. We don't get to pick and choose which county we would like to be, or if we feel like we're in yellow, or gosh, today we're feeling like we're in green. We don't get that. We either get to follow state law and public health orders, or we decide by our inaction to go and do a Weld County. Now, I don't know what that means enforcement-wise. I don't know what that means any otherwise. But I think it's important for us to be cognizant of the fact that we are following state law, and let our businesses and community know that the state public health is what guides our decisions and our viewpoint in this matter. And that's all I have to say about that. Is there any other questions, comments? Does staff need any direction, additional direction from us, or questions that they would like to ask of us?
I mean, unless Carl, you feel like we need any direction, I think I'm pretty clear in that we're gonna charge ahead, trying everything we can, try to keep everybody as updated as possible, and, get the, information out of what is, what reality we are in.
Yeah, I think that was really it. I think this has been a good conversation, but we don't, I mean, it's nice to hear that where we're going is where you guys want us to go, but that was kind of where we were headed.
You weren't asking permission. You were just like advising us of where you were going anyway, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for all the work you two are doing, as well as I know Jen Uden and Matt Nunez has been just working crazy to do this. So thank you very, very much to those people. Having an economic development dedicated person like Matt is not just in the good times to attract, the businesses and fill the Safeway or the American Furniture. It's boy, we're putting him through his paces. And so thank you, Matt. Okay. We are done with that update. All right, report from the city manager, South Canyon RFP.
This was, and I anticipated it would be earlier when we talked about this. You guys had asked us probably like 2 or 3 months ago to put out, and I can't remember if you asked me for an RFQ or an RFP on South Canyon, kind of for the hot springs, to see if we could potentially, get someone interested in developing those. I don't feel like we have enough direction just upon that, because it was real brief, to know what exactly you really want out of that RFQ or RFP.
I think Steve Davis might have an opinion.
Well, I'll tell you, it's really difficult to follow the conversation we just had. COVID update is sobering, And there is no greater priority in our community than getting beyond that. And I'm just so glad that Carl and Deborah are going to find a solution for it. What we had brought up a couple of months ago is to put out an RFP, and it didn't have to be 2 months ago or now, but we just don't want it to fall off the table. And I say we, there was at least 4 of us at that meeting that thought it was a good idea not to let that completely die. We had what I thought was a great proposal for the development of South Canyon, which would not only clean up the problems that we've battled for years, but that development would also provide a much needed asset to Glenwood's quiver of recreational amenities. The applicant last spring withdrew his application, and the conversation just kind of died at COVID, I believe. But I think it is a great opportunity to clean that up with private development out there. It shouldn't burden the city greatly if you have somebody else looking over those assets, and it should provide for revenue back to the city. No kissing at a council meeting.
She's going to bed. I got to get it in.
So anyway, what I would really hope is that we could, work towards getting an RFP out. I think the applicant that we had earlier, Steve Beckley, would quite possibly come back to us, but we'd also like to see other ideas. A request for proposal would simply put out to the public that we're interested in seeing what ideas they have for development there. And I think that we should open our minds to that. And it certainly opened my mind to the possibilities that could exist at South Canyon when we had that discussion earlier. That being said, this is not the time to spend much effort on that. I think that we have got to get down the road, and we have to take care of our number one priority right now, which is this COVID issue and keeping our businesses open. So I wouldn't want to redirect staff to don't think about COVID and go worry about South Canyon, but I think we ought to take baby steps and work towards that. Possibly also, by this spring, have an RFP out there just so we could at least see what other people's ideas are. That's
and
me.
Steve, you were saying like you would like the RFQ to be similar to like the end product in the RFQ, whatever it is, to be similar to what had been proposed, not the exact proposal, but that's a good place to start to look at for ideas.
I would, the proposal that we had, I thought was a great proposal. What this community lacks, there's absolutely not a single resort style RV and camping venue around other than rock gardens. And there should be more options for people traveling more and more. The RV business has just exploded throughout the nation. People don't want to fly. They don't want to stay in hotels. You can't hardly buy a motorhome or an RV if you wanted to right now. And I think we should provide, if that's a possibility, we should provide more opportunities for that. So yeah, I thought Steve Beckley had a great idea. I think that the hot springs out there could be an amenity that's utilized by everybody that lives in Glenwood, not just tourists and the traveling public. But so it'd be great to see that cleaned up. It'd be great to see South Canyon not be a dumping ground for people. The gates closed, so you just dump your load in the creek. We've been seeing that for years. That's exactly what I'd like to see, but I'd love to see it from 3 or 4 other people as well. There should be some competition in that field. You know, people like Ojo Caliente down in New Mexico in the Taos area come forward and would have a great proposal for us. Doesn't mean we have to accept it, but our minds to it. And it ought to provide a great amenity for Glenwood and also provide additional revenues for Glenwood. So we can work on some of those infrastructure projects that Tony's got on his list.
Thanks, Steve. Shelley, then Ingrid.
Steve, thanks for bringing that back. And I am in agreement with you. I'm not against pursuing that for an RFP. My only comment is that my memory is a little different from yours on why that kind of got pushed, why we dropped it at the time that it was brought up. And I think, you know, we had quite a bit of pushback from locals that are familiar with the canyon and the Friends of South Canyon, that group that came together. And what that said to me was that we really, you know, I see South Canyon as it's what, 2,800 acres up there. You know, there's a whole mix of uses. There's a gun range, there's a landfill, there's the hot springs, now we have mountain bike trails up there. And I think things have kind of come together bit by bit. And I think what we need up there is a master plan. And we went ahead and we did the biodiversity study. The group from CSU came in and that study was done last year. And I guess what I'd like to see is, yes, it may be that we want to pursue cleaning up that hot springs and actually making it a usable place. But I think first of all, we need to come together and maybe spend 3 or 4 months. I'm not proposing a big, long drawn out process or spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think for a reasonable cost, we could go in, do a master planning with the community, get input. Which areas do we want to preserve for wildlife? Which areas do we want to develop for a higher recreational use or whatever it may be? And then we have a plan to move forward. And I think we could get the community behind that. And then we wouldn't get shut down like we did the first time. So that's what I would propose doing. And I think we could get that done maybe in the spring of next year. And then we might be ready to do an RFQ or an RFP later in the year, you know, if we're all vaccinated.
If I can comment on that a little bit, I don't think we got shut down. I think it was actually Steve that backed up, and it was because there was some controversy around the proposal. I'm not totally opposed to another study. That doesn't come out of my mouth very easily.
Well, not a study. I'm talking about a plan, a master plan.
Or plan, okay. Well, plan or study, however, whatever you want to call it. But I think if we're going to do that, we need to have some ideas or plans to put into it. So if you're going to have some public comment, we ought to have some charrettes with some ideas. And I think one of those ought to be very similar to Beckley's idea, and then see, how that flies. But I think you have to have some items on that list. Yeah, we have a landfill, we have an archery range, we have a gun range, we have the possibility of an RV park. And is there a plan we can put around that in a large scheme? We have a gun range that really ought to be redeveloped into what would be a world-class shooting range up there that would also bring people to town. And
I saw Brian just got on. He's had some ideas on that too. And I think that's right. I'm open to all of that. And I guess what I'd like to say is let's take the time to put that to paper and put a plan together.
Just real quick, just for point of order, Catherine, Paula got kicked off the meeting about 5 minutes ago, so she is still not back on. So just for a point of order, Paula's no longer with us. So that just changes the content of the meeting a bit. Sorry to interrupt, guys. We had some back and forth, and it is now time to go to Ingrid.
Yeah, honestly, at first Steve talked and I was like, yes, everything he said. And then Shelley talked and I was like, yes, everything Shelley said. So ultimately, what I'm hearing from both of you is just a pretty consistent movement toward better understanding and utilizing that land. And I think the difference is that last time, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the plan that Steve Beckley brought us last time was unsolicited. Whereas I think that if it was solicited and opened up to different, ideas integrated in, hence the master plan idea, I think we could make some progress that would maybe, we're not going to make everybody happy. The reality is that change up there is change in older communities, and that's hard sometimes. But ultimately it's city-owned property, and we can definitely get a harness on how it's being used and use it in the best capacity.
Thanks, Ingrid.
Yeah, everything you said.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, and I'll just say, I think, it was unsolicited, Ingrid, like you said, but that kind of opened our eyes to, oh, wow, there could be something. I've always had a pretty high discomfort, especially in the time of a virus pandemic. I know it's not the same, but I believe those there's probably somebody in there right now in those nasty hot springs that has something like 800 times the limit of E. coli, which you should have. E. coli is not fun. I can speak from experience. And I will say that, for us to have a liability like that on our city land is concerning to me. So however we move forward, I don't think we should run at it. It's been like that for a number of years, but I think we do have a responsibility to get that under control. I think if we are looking at giving direction, I think I agree with Steve and Shelley, like what our eyes were open to with Mr. Beckley's proposal, is a great starting point. We have a lot of uses up there. I wouldn't want to necessarily take any uses away. I wouldn't want to necessarily greatly expand any uses, but I think that's a great starting point for what an RFP could be. I'm also okay with a master plan, but I don't want $100,000. We can't afford it. Like, let's just, like call a spade a spade. We can't afford 100,000. And I really think the public process that we had as the gold standard, at least since I've been on council, was a vacation rental conversation. I think that was something where we all, I didn't get everything I wanted in my mind. I know Steve didn't either. I know, Shelley would have rather had some different things. Robust. It was robust. That's right. But I think at the end of the day, the public really bought into it. And I did not hear a lot of people screaming about whatever because it was done so well. And I got to say, I was just so absolutely blown away by what a great, not blown away because, I shouldn't necessarily be blown away by great work by staff, but Hannah did such a great job with that. And I think before we spent $100,000 subbing out traffic studies and wildlife study, which we've already done, I believe, I would love to start, maybe having a little less PIO and maybe a little more planning from our planner. Not that we can't have some kind of budget, but I'm thinking, let's take the next, 3 or 4 months. Let's have some public inputs. Let's get some of the stuff that we need. But boy, I'm kind of reticent to spend tens of thousands of dollars. I can probably be talked into it, but I don't want to do the whole hog because it sounds like we kind of have a great starting point already with the proposal that was submitted a year and a half ago. So I'd love to get some feedback on maybe what direction we want to give staff on this going forward. Timing, price. Hey, Paula.
And Jonathan, I think, hi, Paula, I'm going to say is before I make potentially another mistake with, like I did with vacation rentals, when I told you we could do something we could not do in the time frame, and actually we did, and I almost killed Hannah doing it. give me a little time to talk to staff and figure it out. Hannah is a wonderful planner. She is also our PIO. And if I move her back to, which we will have to do, we will have to move her back to planning. That is $100,000 expense. Because currently she's not funded in the general fund. She's funded in multiple different funds and as our PIO. So give me a little more time. Let me really figure out what staff can or cannot do and come back to you guys. I think I have a much better understanding of what you want-ish, which is some time to do a master plan light and then an RFP, RFQ that looks similar, or at least the starting point of what the proposal was. And let me figure it out before I make you a promise I cannot keep in a time frame I cannot keep it in. Because, you know, the next couple of months could be really bad.
Right. And I'm good with that. I don't think this is something we have to rush, especially in the current condition of the world right now.
And I actually
I'm
think
hoping they're not. I'm hoping the next couple of months are not bad and we can figure it all out. But yeah, I think I depressed myself with the COVID update as well. So it's just really hard for us to, right now, today, we've been talking about in the spring, we're going to restart the confluence. And in the spring, we're going to do South Canyon. And 3 months, I don't know what I'm looking at. Hopefully it's not that bad and we can do all those things.
Well, we're also going to be at 100% design on South Bridge too in 3 months. So we got that. Steve Davis.
Deborah, you keep your eye on the ball, and the ball is coming today. But, you know, these are things that we'd like for you to have in the back of your head so that at the first opportunity, maybe we can try to move forward into the future and not just trying to, you know, keep our lights turned on and our doors open. So, and
Here, here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments? Thank you, everybody. We have a couple of correspondence. Am I doing this right, or did I skip something? City Attorney. Carl?
All right. I am good. Before and I probably have to make a comment on something on ingoing and outgoing, but I'll wait till then.
Well, we're there, so
I was going to say, you guys got a quasi-legal looking document, and I would take it in the form of a letter. A lot of the demands being made in there, obviously, you don't have the authority to change or do anything about. Fundamentally, that's it's raising questions and challenging the authority of the governor. That would be the appropriate place for them to take their grievances and or file a lawsuit and have the courts decide whether or not their interpretation of the law is correct. It's really not something we can do. So that's all I got.
Okay. And we're not under any requirement to respond in detail within 10 days.
Like
okay.
I mean, it's in the, I take it in the same, it's like you got a letter that said, hey, I think this is the law. Well, I read through it, and by and large, everything they're talking about really has to do with the governor's authority during times of an emergency. That's a statutory and constitutional challenge to the governor's authority. That's the appropriate place to lodge those complaints and the appropriate place to take a cause of action if somebody wanted to challenge that authority. We simply can't change it, right? There again, we're at kind of the bottom of the food chain, not the top. So.
All right. The other correspondence, ingoing and outgoing, is a letter from the Metro Mayor's Caucus that we've been asked to sign on to, that asks for consistency in both guidance and enforcement from the state. I'm not going to read it all or try to generally summarize it, but if everybody's had a chance to read it, and wants to give me direction on whether they would like for us to sign on as a signatory, that'd be great. If you haven't had a chance to read it, then keep your opinion to yourself, I guess. Go ahead, Charlie.
I'm not comfortable as signing on to this. I saw a lot of things that really deal with Metro Denver and issues down there that aren't necessarily relevant to us. I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but it just doesn't seem to me that's anything that does us any good anywhere. You know, I think we stick kind of the train that we talked about earlier tonight, and we're more interested in getting our local communities together rather than joining into the Metro Denver group.
And Charlie, can I ask what specifically did you feel was specific to the Front Range that didn't apply to us, or what language in there that you know was an example of something you didn't agree with?
You know, I read it 2 nights ago, and I don't remember the specifics. It just my thought process at the time. Well, that's interesting, and I'm glad they're doing it, and that's important to them. I think consistency is important, but there was just something about the tone of it that I wasn't sure that it ought to be something that we ought to be doing.
Okay. Any other comments on that? Okay. Well, I guess for just general lack of interest, if you haven't had a chance to read it and you want to read it, not to put people on the spot, but if you haven't had a chance to read it and you want to read it and you feel after reading it that is something you would like for us to look at, we'll put it on the next agenda. I don't think there's any time limit on it. Go ahead, Ingrid.
I was just going to say I did read it. And I guess I just feel like so often we are divided in the state because of geographical limitations. And it just seems like the stuff that's more appropriate to us is not the Metro Mayor District. So I was kind of like, maybe if you gave me one that was like Western Slopes counties, I'd be more inclined to be like, let's jump on board. I don't know. That was my gut, but that was, you asked for thoughts and it seemed like you were like, come on, people, give me something. That was what I thought.
I appreciate that. And that sounds like it echoes Charlie. So 2 out of 2 feels good enough so that we can put a bow on that. Is there anything else anybody has for the good of the order? Okay. With that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I will move to adjourn.
All right.
I'll second.
Moved by Charlie, second by Paul. All in favor, signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Have a great night, everyone. We will reconvene in 2 weeks.
Thanks,
Good night, everyone.
Good night.